before they were old enough to even think for themselves. So by the time they were a young adult, they were locked into a worldview that was destructive, discriminatory, even evil. So we know what that was. But it can happen even to whole countries. It can happen to whole religions, whole races, whole ethnicities. So the question is this like a world-changing event, disclosure, something that we're going to be able to use?
Malaysian 370, contact Ho Chi Minh 120.9. Good night.
Good night, Malaysian 370.
Breaking news tonight, a Malaysia Airlines flight with 239 people on board, including 4 Americans, has gone missing.
Fundamental imbalance in the world, which I think has to do with entropy, which is one of the fundamental laws of. This is why you have this, what I call, huge disparity between destruction and construction, which what we call pop.
Okay, chat. Hey, welcome everybody. Sorry for that. Oh, been a long night. Been talking to a lot of people. It's been exciting. Oh, got my hairs all kind of all over the place. We were taking a look at this stream tonight. Steve Bassett, who's a disclosure advocate. His background is the UAP hearings. You know, he is doing a space tonight. We're going to jump into that for a little bit. And then, yeah, after that, I'll probably close it out early. I'm going to have to finish up some MH370 stuff. Make sure I get all the stuff in there. I've still got 3 pieces I'm still working on. And been overdue on a lot of that stuff. So, as you guys know, it goes slowly, especially since I've been doing my normal job 8 hours a day. But thank you guys for being here tonight. Wow, there's a lot of people in the chat tonight. Hey, Dorian, you were first today. Aaron, PJ, Stevie, Mystical, Kimberly James, Sandy, Amanda, Z Jalapeno, Beninator, Laura, Kreishley, SCU, Pamela. Yeah, we need the Lulu cam. She's you guys, she's asleep, so she's in her pissy mood. Oh yeah, we're scruffy. Oh, I'll shave tomorrow for you guys, so I'm not too scruffy. Hey, Kimberly. Hey, Joshua. Yeah, so I've been trying to mend some bridges with people, guys, including Jack Sarfati and Ross Colehart. Not really sure what's going on with everything, right? Like, it's, I don't know. I think that maybe just everybody's getting played against each other. We've just been disclosing stuff that's so far out of the paradigm that I think that it turns people off. It makes it really difficult for anyone to like believe that a lot of stuff can be true. So we will see. Oh, Ghost, you're back. No more meltdowns, Ghost. Okay, guys, let's jump in onto this and let's listen to what this space is all about. Let's see if it's exciting. I've been invited to co-host. Not gonna co-host because it'll boot people out. Although maybe I should co-host. I don't know. Hold on, here we go.
Group is tiny, but it will be a nonprofit soon, and for the first time be able to raise some, tax deductible funding.
Oh, Kimberly likes it, guys.
Mostly in support
Kimberly
of the New
James.
Paradigm Institute. You've got MUFON that is expanding and growing and has hired a substantial lobbying firm. It's going to be a political force, and there's probably 15 think tanks underway right now I don't even know about. Other organizations are turning up and so forth.
Probably gonna try to do
These
some
are
work
basically efforts of people who
Pierre, what's up, man?
Had a decent amount of time to get in position to be part of the post-disclosure world, and by and large, the people that I'm referring to, it's positive. They want to fix things. All right, and that's a good thing. Okay. Now, the rest of the human race, though, has to catch up.
Nico.
And that's not going to happen until we
Corridor
get
crew on the next hard
confirmation
truth.
of it. So
That'd
for
be
right
funny.
now, we're in that last phase
break some
where a
YouTubers'
certain amount
brains.
of preparation is going on in order to get off to a relatively good start. Once we enter the new paradigm, this world-changing event that will change worldview. And the question is, can you convert that worldview change into real solutions so that we can actually start improving the situation on this planet for ourselves and the planet itself, or make it even worse? So in that sense, it's an unbelievable opportunity worth, investing one's life, even giving one's life. And a number of my colleagues have, in a sense, worked their whole life, and we're still working on this issue to the day they die. And so that's exciting. All right. It's also frustrating because clearly the gun hasn't gone off yet.
Yeah, the lighting's good, right?
So
No?
the media, the social and political, and not social, but the populist media that has emerged is important here. Twitter Spaces, podcasts, all of this is really doing a fantastic job of getting the issue out to regular people at any time, so that they can start making decisions themselves. And there are countless examples of this, and they're growing all the time. That's very good. So, leadership.
Green.
What can I say? You're either, in the post-disclosure world, everybody that steps forward, look at them real hard and ask yourself this question. Are they here to destroy something, or are they here to build something? Are they here to fix something, or are they here to break something? And the answers to those two questions pretty easily will tell you right away whether you want to get behind.
I kind of like it a little darker. You want it lighter, or you want it darker, guys?
And so that's going to be an exciting thing to look forward to.
Oh, you like the blue?
So that's the basic answer to the leadership issue that you asked me. And of course, we could go into item by item the things that need to be fixed. But I think that answers your question. And I had an analogy in there I kind of liked, and I'll get to use that again next time. Another question.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. And I think he was asking about education too, which is the sort of fundamental building block for informing the future generations. Obviously, as far as I'm concerned, I have a philosophy of education, which I can get into later, called Galactic Scholastic for the children, and then other things as well. So I agree with everything Steve is saying, and I really love the question because we have to, it's a big job trying to do this whole disclosure thing to get, the government to want to do it. And
hey, William,
do it in a way that's actually real. But then there's the whole issue of when one cares, right? And I think.
I want to do a shout out to William Bill. He's going through some stuff, and he sent me a message. I appreciate you, William. I appreciated you being out here in the chat. I know that a lot of this stuff means a lot to a lot of people out there. And, I haven't, it's not unnoticed is what I want to say, I guess. Also, is the light good? Beninator. The privacy implications. One of these, I don't know what her name was. I think her name was Moody. Got super upset that I was streaming without telling everybody in the space that I'm streaming. Where I'm just like, you're in a public location. Like, if you're in a public location, there's no expectation of privacy. Some people are weird, chat. Some people are weird. I may try to read some of this while we're doing this.
My
okay,
topple.
Back to the.
At least like
you want it
Tim
darker
Burchell
or lighter?
Said, this could,
you want it darker? No, it's too.
technology.
What's chat? What do you want to do with the lights? Yeah, the lights is good.
Meaning the whole damn Pentagon. Good. And
we got a little blue tinge.
With real enthusiasm right after David Brush's testimony, and I was really with him on that. So I'm like hoping for it. I think the whole system needs to blow up, and I know that would look like anarchy. But okay, let's keep our system, but let's get the money out. But my question for you is, don't you foresee these things as being so
Christly, how's my light? Kreishley, tell us
it's
how
going
the
to
light
be
is.
rebuilding from ashes, which is what I want. I want the whole
hold on a
thing
sec.
burned down, metaphorically speaking. Get all new people. Is that what you? Is, what? How smoothly do you think this is going to go? Don't you think it's going to be outrageous that they haven't told us the truth for 90 years?
Well, sorry, I don't have one to start off with. Well, I happen to, let's turn it upside down. The fact is, the government's been lying about this issue for 3/4 of a century, and each year that goes by, more and more people know. And I don't know what percentage of the world's people know the government's lying, but I know that in the polls, going back a ways, sometimes we get up in the high 80s. In other words, the question would be, do you think the government's telling you the truth about this phenomena? 8% would say no, meaning they know they're lying. So I think actually the fact is that pretty much everybody knows, or most people know, the government's lying. Therefore, confirming the ET presence, instituting a controlled disclosure plan, start getting the information out, even the deepest classified information in an orderly way in a reasonable amount of time, but starting right away after the act is passed, it is going to have the opposite effect. In other words, if someone's been lying to you, the only way to regain the trust is to start telling them the truth. And so acknowledging that you lied in the past is a truth.
There actually
so
is
right
an
away
orange
you
chat.
made
We'll go
progress.
with purple.
And so no,
orange.
It's not going to destroy
Big
the trust in
James!
government. The trust in government is already being
Big James,
destroyed.
dear chat.
It's going to stop the process of destruction and reverse it, hopefully, assuming the government capitalizes on that. And I've said this many times. I've said, given the
fucking legend,
scope
Big
of
James.
social media, the ability of billions of people to focus on something, literally, ask an influencer, right? You know, you start an ice bucket challenge, and next thing you know, 200 million people have done the ice bucket challenge. What can I say? That's the world we live in. And so, given that level of scrutiny, once the government acknowledges the ET presence, the questions will begin.
We're talking about the ET presence?
The cast will be endless. The hearings will go on, and the questions will be endless. And if I'm in government, you just don't lie anymore. You just tell the truth.
Government ain't never telling the truth, chat.
The way the governments get away from lying is they tell a lie about something that people don't have the time to deal with. So if they lie about, say, a situation that leads us to war, most people are not going to have to go fight that war.
We need the truth seekers.
But once you don't have to fight the war, they're
seekers.
just living their life. So it's like the lie just has its effect. A lot of people get hurt. Most people, it doesn't affect them. That's how the government is able to do that. This is not that case. The ET truth embargo is pretty much well known now from one end of the planet to the other.
Well known.
The lie is understood. The truth, when it comes out, will go worldwide overnight. So that's a whole different level of change. And so I am thinking that if I'm with the exception of certain governments, there are certain autocratic governments out there, they're never going to tell the truth until they're pretty much destroyed, dragged down the street, and done away with. But fortunately, there are few. Most countries don't have to go through that.
Africa?
They just need to start telling the truth. And so disclosure could begin that process. And of course, the moment governments start telling the truth to the people start trusting them more, and then you could start solving problems. And so that is the upside of ending the truth embargo. And obviously, that's not talking about bringing everything down and starting from ashes or getting rid of government for a while. You never want to live in a country with no government, trust me. Never. If it's a small little island state with a population of 150, possibly. But any country with a couple of 100 million people, there's no government, I assure you, it will be hell on earth. If you can live a week, you'll be lucky. So
I love what you're saying, Steve. I was just having a very passionate conversation about this actually tonight, and I agree. We must respect that which we have that resembles a democracy. Still, it is much better than the alternative. There's avenues for citizens to get to the truth and do activism. Whereas, in a full-on fascist system, such is not the case. And we're in the most powerful country in all known history. And so to attempt, which we would not, a violent revolution would certainly not work.
No, it's not going to work. But it's fixing things. We just need to fix things, You move into a house, and it's got problems, you fix them. Now, if you're really, really rich, you tear the whole house down, and you build something even better over that and get that. But we can't do that in this case. Right?
We don't have the money or the time. And so you just have to fix things. And we know the things that need to be fixed. We really, really do. Whether it's the education system, the political system, the geopolitical system, the environmental approaches, and on and on. We know what has to be fixed. We just don't do it. It's that simple. It's like a kid, right? We're like a child. The child knows what they're supposed to do. They just won't do it. Period. So they drive the parents crazy. Well, we're driving the world crazy. We simply will not fix anything. So that's the mentality we have to have. Almost all activists are trying to fix something. All activist movements are trying to fix something.
I need a third light
It's always
chat.
some injustice, some unfairness, something that's clearly not acceptable, and it's being conducted by authority, and activism is to change
like
that,
3
stop
orbs.
that. It's always trying to fix something, and it's tough, and it's hard,
Feels bad.
and it seems it takes a long time. Whereas the opposite of that, how to cause real trouble, is so easy to do. This
Where's
is
Big
that
Poopin'?
discrepancy, that imbalance that the human race has been fighting since its very earliest origins. I think we're smart enough now. We understand it. Primitive early men did not. They didn't understand it, right? But we understand it. We also have science and technology and knowledge that allows us to actually solve problems and get around this disparity, this imbalance between destruction and construction. Build bridges, don't blow them up. Build dams, don't blow them up. Build cities, don't
Crucially, we've been saying it
burn
wrong
them
the
or
whole time.
destroy them to the ground. That's not hard. Educate people. Don't just let them go off and wander around in the woods. Drop out of school. Make college so expensive you can't go there. Right? And on and on and on. We know the solutions to it. So
Crucially, guys,
the
we've been saying it
mode I
wrong the whole
want
time.
people in is to fix things. Now, just very quickly, the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance, which is what's underway right now, it's the biggest project, is not yet about fixing things. It is about the post-disclosure world. Because the first thing the world needs to do is learn. And learning is not, at a premium right now, all right? It's not working so well. And there's a lot of complex reasons for that. The point is they've got to learn. So you got 8 billion people, and they've got to have some understanding of what just happened and what it means. And that is going to require huge amounts of money and resources and media to generate the content that's going to provide that. And the content can earn money, no question about it. It has to. So the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance was created in a network, the film industry.
Chat, Amanda does not know why Pig James. Pig James added the pig because he wanted to differentiate. There used to be like 4 other Jameses in the chat. It's legendary stuff.
The ET people, the UAP people, who have worked with very little money under the truth embargo, under heavy statement, to try to find the truth and bring them together so that they one gets the knowledge and the other gets the resources, and they can start generating much higher quality and more content that ultimately is going to educate the world. And this is happening now, pre-disclosure, as it should, and I'm glad. I wasn't thinking we're going to be able to get it done in time. But in a sense, this extra time that we've gotten because of certain events gives us a little more time to prepare. But the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance is about getting the information out so people will have an understanding of what's about to happen, so that they're more inclined to respond to the leadership that we hope to see to fix things. Okay, this is what's happened. This is the new world. Let's rethink everything. And we've got these ideas and that ideas, and let's do this and let's do that. And let's pass this law. Let's raise money for this, et cetera, et cetera. Let's get this treaty. Let's have this diplomacy, and on and on and on. That is an extremely simple way of describing what is coming. And so the last thing we need to be thinking of is destroying anything, tearing anything down. We need to fix what we have, solve the problems, and then as we start to create a much more comfortable, safer environment, then we can start building from that. And before you know it, and it wouldn't take that long, the circumstances the human race is facing on this planet, and the circumstance the planet is facing, I think could be a very, very comfortable place within less than 25 years.
24 hours?
And that's something that should be discussed. Every college in the country should have people up on a stage in front of the faculty and students talking about that, and they don't. Virtually nothing because the colleges and universities have truly failed us in the truth embargo, they will do nothing and have done nothing. The journalists have done a lot. The government has done some things. The college and universities literally laid down and did nothing. And so if they can get in the game and we start having these discussions at thousands of universities and colleges about, okay, how do we fix this? How do we fix that? How do we adjust to this post-disclosure rule? What does it mean? What are the possibilities? Regardless of what the ETs may bring us or not bring us, what they have to say or don't have to say, their very presence alone, once confirmed, is a transforming paradigm shift. Anything beyond that is gravy, and I think there's going to be some gravy.
What does Steve Bassett do?
Beautiful, Steve. Yeah, I'm
rude.
honored to be a helper
Also-
and participant in Steve's Hollywood Disclosure Lines thing. And
When people say ETs, it just feels weird to me. Does it feel weird to you guys, chat, when people talk to them about ETs?
create this content, which they love to do because it's the best content. You know, I make some of it myself and I vibe with it, but to make it based on truth. And that was a brilliant thing to connect the top experts with the top makers of film, TV, and everything else. And, you know, I love how, you know, I've always loved Steve, but, you know, the more I get to know him, the more I vibe. Because like me, you know, he's attempting you know, he's been doing it forever. He's been doing it first. For those who are just joining us and are not aware, he was the first
It's like
lobbyist
you heard me.
ever in history to do this, and has been working diligently ever since. And he's been there diligently every decade of this truth embargo, which he also coined the terminology of. But I think it's so brilliant how he connected historically. I mean, in my opinion, I'm sorry, he doesn't like when I speak hyperbolically, but it's true. You know, connecting the best of the mainstream media and just media with the best scientists and experts in the field that he knows, you know, quite well. You know, I also have a philosophy of truth in a post-truth world, which is sort of my contribution, among other things. And yeah, he's hitting it from every possible angle. So I really appreciate it. I want to get to Christian because I know he has to put some children to sleep. Hey, Christian, what's your question?
Well, I don't even know if it's much of a question. It's more about.
Should we ask how many species there are of ETs?
I see disclosure a little bit more complicated, and I guess I don't know.
Doesn't feel weird to you?
I know what's going to happen.
Who's
There's no going back. I just don't know how fast it'll be. I think their plan is. I heard actually Richard Dolan on.
Thanks,
I
Laura.
think it's behind
Talk
a
to you later.
paywall, but I think it's worth it. On his Fireside Chat podcast on Sunday, he was talking to Carl Nell and Tim Gallaudet, and it looks like they briefed him. Basically, you can tell. Like the way Dolan was talking was different. Usually he's very skeptical of disclosure. You know, he's like secrecy's really strong. And this time he was like, well, there's a plan. Disclosure is going to happen. But basically he said that there's a lot of
None of these people know when disclosure is going to happen. No offense.
that are not so good, very nasty.
They're not the ones who decide.
Happened. That. Yeah, and there's okay. And then he later went to talk about covert deals, and in the sole presentation of Carl Nell had a PowerPoint presentation, and that was one of the reasons for not disclosing. It said, I think it was a PowerPoint said number 4, covert agreement. Let me read this.
I've seen it.
Yeah. So things like that, like what were the that's important to humanity, right? You make a deal with NHI.
The Nebuchadnezzar has plenty of space.
You know. Anyway, so there's a lot of things like that that are very complicated.
Take that red pill. Let's do it.
Richard said it's going to happen, but there's people that they're not even pro-disclosure necessarily. They're just realistic. They're like, we can't keep the secrets we've been keeping for 80 years. It's not possible to do that anymore. So we gotta give some information out, like partial disclosure, but there's still people in power, very powerful, that they're like, over my dead body, gonna have to take this out of my cold, dead hands. And yeah, so that's where we're at. But he seems very confident that it's gonna happen. But there's a lot of nasty stuff that has happened, and it's very awkward and uncomfortable, and they don't really know how to tell this to the public. Like right now, a lot of people already know in government what's been going on, but they're like terrified to tell the public because of the unpredictable. It's very unpredictable what will happen. You know, we talk about like, yeah, this is awesome, you know, whatever. but the average person that has a lot of other problems, they might be, I don't know, it's just so complicated. Everybody responds differently. You know, some people would be scared, some people would be fascinated, some will be skeptical, but over time it's going to evolve where in 20 years there's barely going to
It'd be
be
funny if Moody
any
was in the
skeptics
chat.
left. The skeptics are probably going to be the weirdos and probably even less of that. But yeah, I just, the other thing, Steve, with everything going on, I mean, we're in the verge of World War III, Ukraine, you know, Gaza, and there all these geopolitical elections, and I'm like, man, that all these distractions that, you know, how do we deal with those, you know, and because that's what it's mostly on the news and on people's minds.
Mhm.
So
What kind of
yeah,
question should
I
we
don't
ask?
know. I think it's gonna happen. I just don't know how fast it's gonna happen, how much of a priority it is for people in government right now. I think a lot of them are kind of scared and uncomfortable with the situation. And then you got Timber Chet and others that are pit bulls. But you know, I'm gonna shut up. I think you get my point. Thank you.
You guys are gonna red pill
The
Crishley
aliens
here.
want us to fight. That's why they keep us distracted, fighting each other.
That's not my view. I think the ETs are actually going out of their way to advance the process. Sightings have gone up substantially in the last couple of years.
But
Look, I can only refer to what is
Not
happening.
going up because of aliens.
In terms of, in order to project the future, first you have to understand what's happening. Otherwise, you're just throwing darts into the dark. More has happened on this issue in terms of advancing the disclosure process in the last 7 years than the previous 70. It has been an extraordinary pace. Many of it's been absolutely game changing. Now, again, when you've been waiting 70 years already, 7 more years doesn't seem like a
Who's the
rush to the
dumbest of the
finish
5
line.
species?
But that's just
The space is kind of boring, chat.
for those that were just born, say, around the year 2000. It looks to them like we're heading straight out of the galaxy, and they're going to be flying around the galaxy on starships. So it's a perception. I think that the safest thing we can say is that we've made extraordinary progress. The issue is fully out. People keep coming forward with high-ranking stations saying there's extraterrestrials here. Legislation has been passed. An extraordinary piece of legislation almost been passed. Think tanks are being formed. The stigma is virtually gone. The amount of media covering it is the greatest ever. A couple thousand articles a year of reasonably good media, and another 4,000 or 5,000 from just small stuff all over, and that's just English language. Wow. The process is no longer.
Thank you very much, Izzy. Appreciate your donation. Man, people are donating again now, huh? Disclosure is such a buzzword. Why now for all the truth besides the technology? That's a good question, Izzy. I think that this stuff's been hidden for 80 years, and at some point they know it's going to get out. It's a discovery, right? It's not this kind of technology is not an invention. It's a discovery. What's the difference? Is discoveries are inevitable. Discoveries will come out no matter what. Learning how fire works is going to come out no matter what, right? And that's why I think what's going on. Crishley brought up a good point, Crishley brought up a good point. I think that a lot of us are focused on the idea that that all life has to look like us. Consider the wild differences between us and deep sea life. If anything, humans probably originated probably originated here. Now, two aspects of that. One, yes, I think that what your beings look like are going to be somewhat related to where they've originated. Now, here's the flip side. What if aliens end up being exactly like us? Look at how complex human life is. Look at how complex our DNA structure is. To me, I used to be somebody who thought for sure we could have just evolved here, but now I think there's no way we evolved here from single-cell organism. I think it's much more likely that we were planted here. That's my personal opinion, at least. And I wouldn't be surprised at all to find out that there's an alien race or aliens that look just like us. That could be wrong, just my opinion. You know, if they are out there. I like the ultra-terrestrial hypothesis as well, which is the idea that they're here beside us, right? And they could be like a breakaway civilization that's like, I don't know, under the water or something else. Okay. Taking you back to your regularly scheduled program.
Which is where we are now. And so we are, in fact, standing literally at the finish line. I mean, it's a few yards in front of us. All we have to do is take a few more steps, and the race is won, and we move on to the next phase. And what are those steps? There's really only two that have to be made. They're well defined. If you go back in time, it's much more difficult to define those steps. Meaning, okay, step one, step two, step three, and then we can think, well, what is one? What is two? One is, you don't know. You do the best you can, but it was very difficult. Now it's not so hard. Two steps. Mark Warner calls a hearing in the Senate Intel Committee. 1 week, 10 sessions, two witnesses a session. That's 20 witnesses under oath, cameras running full time, a couple 100 million people watching. We know roughly who those witnesses are going to be, and I can assure you, it will be like having 10, 15 Grushes testify. That's it. It's over. At that point, it's over. The only thing that's missing is the president to step forward and confirm it. 2 steps. Checkmate. We know that's all we need. So that's pretty close to the finish line. Now, that doesn't mean you crossed it. It just means you got those 2 steps to make. And so my project, ShiftStorm, SHIFT, shiftstorm.org, which is still up, is about getting tagged tweet messages into Schumer, Rubio, and Warner, saying, look, we want the hearings, guys.
I'm going to make
and you can send as many as you want. You can send hundreds of them. And they fill up their notifications box. They all have Twitter accounts. Every member of Congress has a Twitter account. You can't post it in feed, but you can post it in a notifications box by using that handle, @Senator Schumer. And so Danny Sheehan has got a project going at New Paradigm Institute where you can contact all your members of Congress. And we're just getting warmed up. But time's a wasting, right? We're dancing on the edge of nuclear war. The political situation is further decay. We need that paradigm shift. You know, it's like that analogy I had before. We really need to win that lottery right now. We could use that $1 billion. So let's win it. Let's get it done. So it's that well defined. That's how close we are. Now, the only way someone would be able to understand fully what I just said is if they were paying attention across the board on this issue for years. I don't expect people to be able to do that. I have very few colleagues that have a picture quite like this. That's okay. That's the job of the activists. You devote your time to trying to understand the overall processes to get a sense of where it's going and then help people get there. That's all you do. You don't do anything else. You don't have a side job, a side gig. You're not running a crypto marketing deal or something. That's all you do. That's all I do. Danny, that's all he's doing, pretty much. So understand this. We are right there at the finish line. Mark Warner has the power to do it. That the fact that he has it is not shocking.
I feel like I should just jump in and ask a question.
And I don't, I read the Greek shit when I was younger, and the Greek gods were famous for toying with the Greeks. I mean, it's all they do is torture them, drive them crazy, make for some great plays. And it's like the gods do drive us crazy. And so when we get to the finish line, it's like they start throwing cream pies at us and trying to trip us up with ropes or whatever, or there's a solar eclipse or whatever the hell. It's odd, but it seems to happen that way. And so as we approach disclosure, we've got one of the most dangerous conflicts in history in Ukraine. We have one of the most dangerous Middle East developments in history in the Middle East. We've got 3 or 4 other major areas in which people are dying or just committing genocide. And then we've got mega threats in terms of China's interest in Taiwan, the development of nuclear hypersonic missiles, the possibility of the weapons of space, and on and on. And then the politics in the United States has basically collapsed to the level of the 5th grade. So I didn't see that coming. I mean, I knew there'd be a problem. I didn't quite see this
Dorian.
And so as we sit
He's
there
sick-minded
on the edge of the greatest shift in history, we're tied up in the very problems we need that shift to happen to fix. It's a wonderful little dilemma, isn't it? It's the classic case of going to the bank to get a loan. The only way you can get a loan from a bank is if you don't need a loan. If you don't need the loan, you can get a loan. If you do need it, you can't get it. It's kind of like that. So the activist job is to punch through that.
Rick Doty.
One way or another. And that's what you're seeing happen. Danny's doing stuff. I'm doing stuff. Gary Nolan is doing things.
I want to ask my question.
As we go in this kind of complicated quiet period, but slow period when all this other stuff is happening, don't think that the issue is not being pursued behind the scenes. That is continued unrelenting. People are being briefed. People are learning. They're talking. Sometimes they're coming forward and saying they want to do something, but behind the scenes activity on this issue has not stopped, and witnesses keep coming forward. There are thousands of potential witnesses to this issue who have firsthand or very strong secondhand information, who have clearances, who have clear defined careers, and there are thousands of them. And we don't need thousands. We need about 10, 12, 15 really good ones. 10 Bob Salases. And by the way, I was just giving a keynote speech at the Newtown Symposium this year. Make sure you go. It's in Dallas, Fort Worth. So that's the way I invite y'all to think about it. You're standing on the finish line, not at the beginning of the race, at the very end. Pay attention to the efforts being done to finally cross it. Help if you can. Don't impede, right? Try to stay optimistic, right? Because, it's been a long race. We're tired. We're exhausted. I've run marathons. I know what it's like. But it's amazing when you run a marathon or a triathlon. When you get toward the end,
Bassett's got a lot of boomer in him.
Excited, you get
Long
pumped
boomer
up,
answers.
you're thrilled, right? And it's kind of cool. It's hardly any feeling quite like it. This has been a different kind of race. And so as we get closer to the finish line, instead of getting more thrilled, we're getting more angst, more concerned, more conflicted, cognitive dissonance, and so forth. Because this is unlike any race anyone has ever run, including yourself. But you're running it, and you will finish it. And when we finish, we all cross the finish line together. There's no first or last. When disclosure happens, the entire world crosses that line together. Next question.
Beautiful indeed. I just want to let you know, for the second time, we got Rick Doty here. I mean, he's here on a regular basis, but he's here because he hasn't had a chance to vibe with you.
Sure.
And he's been describing his own disclosure activism with the world famous, to some infamous, but quite interesting aviary group and such. And I'm trying to bring him up, but it's a bit of a glitchy app. Not my fault, of course. Rick, you might have to leave and come back if you're not able to get the speaker
make sure you like
button
guys.
working. I'm gonna
like the stream for
at least it's not Steve who's holding things up in terms of your
tell more people the truth.
Collaboration here and first encounter.
While you're doing that, let me add something else. One more thing. Look, there are a number of reasons why someone like Colonel Nell
switches to live chat
and some others may talk in terms of longer term, meaning 2030, 5 years, or whatever.
Where's Doty?
Does that mean that they know that that's the plan and that's going to work out? No, it does not. But from their perspective, a less urgent way of thinking is preferable for them, for whatever reason. The DoD knows the game is up, but they wouldn't mind having an extra 4 or 5 years. NASA, same thing, and so forth. I'm okay with that. It's okay. I'm not going to get on Colonel Nell because he's projecting out to 2030, 2035. But I will say this. The idea that the government can control it in such a way to get it to 30,
it's boring.
This thing is literally happening around them. It's an avalanche coming down the mountain. And you can talk about, where you'd like the rocks to go,
I'll post a link to the Discord
how far the avalanche will last, and so forth. But the fact is, it's going to do exactly what it wants to do. And so I'm not offended by that. I'm simply saying, put your money on it could happen at any moment, not 2030. You've got a much better chance to cash. Okay. Is Rick here yet?
He's been here listening, and I don't know. He can't. Rick.
Make sure you verify when you join the Discord, please.
Space and/or the app. Just temporarily.
Can't figure that out. Go to the verify channel.
Well, he may have to do what I did. Reboot. I rebooted the whole computer and worked fine. Who knows why? But that's the only thing that caught me back.
Yeah, we're gonna have to get this spicy, guys. I don't know if I
know why.
I don't know if I can sit here
It's not our fault.
silently.
It's just an error with the application, but it's okay. We're going to make it work. And this is the best we've done so far. It's great to have you audible and not like pipe through my Zoom. Right. Yeah, this is wonderful. So let's get to Ashton, who's co-hosting for us. You got a question, man? We'll get Rick in here.
Yo, hey Mello, how's it going tonight? Mr. Bassett, quick question. What is your? This is a question I just like to ask everybody who's kind of into UFOlogies. What is your definition of disclosure? I would guess from listening to you the last 30 minutes or so that for you it's about the aliens or ETs being kind of revealed to the world, but how would you describe it in your own words? True disclosure. Go ahead. Thank you.
Well, I made it easy for myself. I self-defined it. It's my definition, right? So it can only be that.
Hear him chat.
And it was a reason for it. Disclosure, the one I talk about, 95% of the time, is the event, the capital D disclosure event. It's a little confusing because I could have called it confirmation, but no, it didn't quite work for me. Disclosure is a strong term. We just need to make a capital D. So disclosure is Christmas, which is a capital X. St. Patrick's Day, which is coming up, capital S. It's an event. It's a proper noun. And it is defined only as the confirmation of the extraterrestrial presence, wherever they're from, by heads of state. Not by a senator, not by an astronaut, not by a talk show host, by the head of state in an official capacity. And ultimately, every head of state will do it. That's disclosure, capital D. That's what we're pursuing. That's as simple as it could get. Small d disclosure is also, to me, pretty basic. Small d disclosure is simply the process of revealing information. Yeah. So if Richard Dolan writes a book and has some chapters in there about a particular case, that's small d disclosure. If Newfork is collecting information on 40 or 50 or 100 sightings, that's small d disclosure. If the government releases some documents that have been tied up before, that's small d disclosure. Everything is small d disclosure.
Guys, you got
if
small
it's
d.
not disinformation or
small d disclosure.
Misinformation, that's not really disclosure. That's propaganda or, well, it's not true. And if it's not true, you're disclosing a lie. What have you done? You've accomplished it. So it is a revealing of information. And that's going on all the time in the world, and not just on the ET issue, but in everything, right? We're learning about this and that.
I kind of want to cut them off.
And about science and about the history of the world and all this stuff. It's all disclosing, a revealing of the world to ourselves through our cognizant ability, primarily driven by the scientific method, which I consider the greatest invention of humankind. That's all small d disclosure. So I've just made it as simple as it could be. Yeah. Everything that happens leading up to that event is small d disclosure. The event is capital D disclosure, the confirmation. And then after that, it's all small d disclosure again.
Small
Only
the
disclosing stuff is juicier, more interesting, more
my
profound,
ladies in chat are upset.
But it's still just more information.
They want that.
Keep it simple and you'll struggle less.
I appreciate that, sir. Can I ask a quick follow-up on that, which is, do you think that with large D disclosure, do you think that people will believe heads of state if they come out? I'm kind of skeptical as whether or not, if Biden comes out and says there's aliens out there, I feel like a lot of people are going to go, okay, no, there's definitely no aliens now. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, that's the beauty of the process underway. But the president's not going to come out and say there's ETs here, just take my word for it. And that would be politically ill-advised and a terrible maneuver. And that's why every president has known there's an ET presence. Every single one way or another. Some have known more than others. Most haven't known much, but they've known they're here. They just chose not to do anything about it. They got a full plate, and that's a tough nut. So they let the DOD and the military people do it. The point is, every president has known. But that's the way things are going is exactly what we want.
That's a good question.
The hearing process under oath in front of the world of not 1, 2, 10, 15, but maybe 20 witnesses that, like Grush, making it absolutely clear. And they can show videos. I mean, they could show gun camera clips for days if they wanted to. They can produce the evidence, which will absolutely lock it down. I don't think they have to produce all that much. David Grush was a lot. But imagine 10 days.
We only talk large D disclosure, chat.
And so at that point, the president simply comes forward.
Small D doesn't satisfy us.
Confirms what everybody has already figured out. Yes, we're not alone. That formalizes it. That's the confirmation event. That's disclosure with a capital D. That's what opens the doors.
Does that do something?
That's what makes things possible that were not possible before. When Edgar Mitchell said there was an extraterrestrial presence in 2009 at a press conference in a press club that I put on, did that open doors everywhere? Did the government start passing legislation? Did ETs open up and start talking to CNN? No. It has to come from the head of state. Because it's that level. It's that big. It's even bigger than the issue of war. War's a pretty big deal. Guess what? You just can't get in front of a camera and say we're going to war with China. Any number of people could do that and use nothing. Even the president cannot do that. The president can get in front of a camera tomorrow and say we're going to war with China. No, we're not. The only way we can go to war with China is if the Congress declares war on China. And if it doesn't, there's no war. Now people say, well, if the president were to say that, it's a big deal. That's not a big deal. But there are ways that things happen. There are protocols. There are ways we function. And one of the ways we function is some things come under head of state. And because this is an absolute total classified matter, national security based, the only person who has the ability to declassify everything through appropriate protocols is the president. Nobody else has that same level of power. And so when the president confirms, everybody knows that as far as getting the extra information out, the president will support it. And it will happen. Though it will be an orderly process. That's the process that Schumer and Rounds put into that bill, which is a little too much for the defense contractors, and they push back, but they're not going to win that one. So think of it that way. Will the people accept it? Of course they will. Of course they will. We will. When we declare a war on a nation, guess what? The people have to accept it. Oh, they may protest, they may jump up and down, but there's nothing to do about it. And a bunch of guys get drafted and go to Vietnam. So it doesn't matter whether they accept it or not. They have a choice.
New stream name, Thick D Disclosure.
But unlike war, this is not like that at all. This isn't a bad thing. This is an extraordinary thing. And so people are going to accept it because it's true, because it's formal, and because it's extraordinary. And it could make our world a better place. So I'm not too worried about people accepting it. In fact, I view the human race as dying of thirst for it. Literally crawling across the desert, desperate to get some truth. And that truth will be like giving water to a person dying of thirst in the desert. That's how I almost view the human race.
New space name, guys, or new stream name. Thick D Disclosure with Steve Bassett.
Thanks, Steve. I want to stop you there for a sec, just because we got Rick up here. Everybody repost the room. I don't like to say that often, but this is the first time these two incredibly consequential people, I'm not going to flatter them too much because they don't like it, but it's the first time they're talking together. We tried to do it last week, but now we got them working. Hey, Rick, can you speak now?
Hey, Rick.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Imagine if I was on
You sound perfect. I want to let you and Steve mostly talk with me, maybe gently moderating, because you guys are both, been at this, different angles. For those just joining and playing at home, we got the legendary. Sorry, he doesn't like when I say it. We have just Steve Bassett, just a guy who has been the original person in DC doing this originally. The first.
Guys, what if we asked Rick Doty if he's into thick D or small D disclosure, guys?
To attempt to do so. And now we're on the razor's edge of history, and it's actually
Truth
happening.
Seekers,
So
Tyler.
there's some validation, and then we got Rick, who's there's a movie called Mirage Men about him, and he's also very influential, but from a different perspective, a retired.
Pamela likes the hard D disclosure chat. I hope my other nerds in the chat are paying attention to what the ladies are saying here, guys. It's not. It's how you use it, chat.
Consult and write the X-Files, or at least give him the information for it. And now he is, as he's told us recently in some very interesting spaces, working for disclosure in his own way. And so I think it's really interesting to get these people who've never met before, who are around the same age, who've lived through all this history, the most interesting history of all known history. Let's let you guys mingle a bit.
Slick Rick.
Oh,
well, thank you.
Yeah.
Let's go.
I'm really my honor to be on with Steve, and I followed him on the Paradigm Research Group. I've followed what he's done, some magnificent work over the years.
How old is this guy so old?
The group that I am in, the Advanced Working Group.
79 years old?
We met last week in Washington, or 2 weeks ago in Washington, D.C. We did have contacts with the Senate side. We're more aligned with the Senate than we are with the House. And we've facilitated some whistleblowers on our side. And I think Stephen named a few or a number, but our group knows of 88 whistleblowers that have been cleared by DODIG. And all of them are either military or former military. There are 36 polygraph examinations given to them, some of them, like I said, 36 out of the 88. And these are the real things, the real people that have had hands-on experience with UAPs, UFOs, IECs, however you want to call it, picked up pieces of craft or picked up biologics and put them in body bags. These are the real live people that had contacts. Those are the ones that we want to get in front of a Senate or a congressional hearing. We want them to tell their story about exactly what they did, when they did it, and how they did it. Now, in order to do that, there's a number of hurdles that Congress has to go over. And one of the biggest hurdles is the DOD, the CIA, and the DIA. They're putting so many obstacles up against disclosure, especially the U.S. Space Force, where we thought initially they were going to cooperate with some form of disclosure. Then they turned around and said, no, we're not going to do that. There's too many special access programs that we can't talk about. And we understand that. And our group, certainly most of our group, don't want national security jeopardized. They're almost all retired military or intelligence personnel. We have some that aren't, but mostly that's the makeup. We certainly don't want to jeopardize national security, but there's ways to release the data, skirting the SAP programs, to let the American people know exactly what the United States government has been doing for the last 77 years.
Tell us about those ways.
And the people are not going to be happy because, as you all know, I was involved with disinformation back in the 70s and 80s, and it was my job to disinform people. Well, I got off that horse a long time ago, and now I'm for disclosure. But I can see operations occurring right now within DIA that I would call it a deception. We didn't call them disinformation programs back then. We called them deception operations. And I can guarantee you right now, there's a number of deception operations going on right now to keep the full disclosure out of the public eye.
What do you think they're doing, Rick, in terms of that? Can you give us any examples or even hypothetical ones that they might be doing?
Yeah, they're spreading disinformation. Sean Kirkpatrick. We know Sean has a billet. Now, what's a billet? A billet, anyone that had special access program clearance has a billet, a certain number. Mine was back in my days.
This guy's
42. That was my billet number. It's on your briefing forms or your your non-disclosure forms or your security clearance forms. Sean Kirkpatrick had a billet number, so he had access to special access programs. He also had access to something the Navy had research, the special research underwater research agency within the DIA and the ONI. Well, actually, it was in the ONI, but part of it was NSA. And so he knew he had access to that information. But now he's going out and disinforming people. He's stating that Captain Grush isn't telling the truth, or the information that Captain Grush has given is not credible. That's disinformation right there. And the articles, the newspaper articles, one key way to disinform the public is leaking information to the news media, the Washington Post, New York Times, Wall Street Journal. I can guarantee you the government has contacts within every one of those newspapers, those major newspapers. And when I was in Albuquerque, stationed at Kirtland Air Force Base, I had contacts with every one of the newspapers, radio stations, and news channels in that state. So it's easy to leak information, and it's publicized, and then now the public reads information that's not accurate. Those are a number of different ways you can disinform the public.
Thank you for that answer. Steve, do you have any response to what Rick was talking about there as well, or any insights?
Sure. I could give you an hour. First of all, let me point out something that's very important. Inside and outside. There is the inside to this history, and there's the outside. And
UAP social media should be a...
Meaning that the people on the inside obviously have a great deal of knowledge about the history of this and so forth. whatever their role. And we want access to that knowledge. We want them to be able to use it. The people on the outside, of course, don't have quite that kind of access. However, they do know a great deal about the issue, and they're less compartmentalized. Stovepiping is common within the government approach, and so you've got people that are one thing or another thing, whereas in the outside world, you have a lot of individuals that look at everything. So, but overall, it's the inside-outside is going to have to come together to get this thing settled and move forward in a positive way. That's why I had no interest from the beginning in demonizing the government. I mean, I've been upset with my government many times. And I'm irritated with the truth embargo in some ways, but it's not even touch my irritation with the government over what they did in Southeast Asia or how they handled the 9/11 events and the wars that took place. So I think the ET issue is a much more, how would you say, constructive platform on which the inside and the outside and get together. Rick is an example of that. He's not the only one. The reason that I worked to change the term UFO cover-up to truth embargo, it's another one that I own. It's a nickel. Just send me a nickel in an envelope every time you use it. Is that the UFO cover-up implies illegal action on the part of everybody inside. Now that's not the case. Everything they were doing would have been easily supportable in a court of law under the National Security Act. Occasionally they got out of line. Yeah, I get that. But overall, they weren't breaking the law, and they're not criminals. So to criminalize them is to alienate them, and that's not the way to get cooperation. So I switched to the truth embargo. Okay, that's my first response. My second response is, forgive me, what I need to do is just turn the sound down, because I started my phone up because I hate to leave it off. Hang on, let me just get that. 1 second. There we go. Think of this whole thing like a football game. Okay? You're moving up the field. You're making some progress, but you get resistance all the way, right? Right up until the 1 yard line. And you're going to get a touchdown eventually if you're good, but you're not going to stop resisting you right up until the 1 yard line. That's why it's very hard to score in the red zone. You got teams that can move up and down the field like crazy. To get inside the 20, they can't go anywhere because the resistance is tougher. So we're in the red zone now. We've been in it for some time. We're very close to the finish line. So is there going to be strong defense? Yeah. Of course there is. There are going to be people that are going to try to push back? Yeah, of course they are. Does that mean they're going to win? No. We're going to score a touchdown, win the game. So the fact that there's issues and some problems is hardly surprising. The third point is this. There is a perspective from the outside that can be very useful. Not always. So let me give you a perfect example. Sean Kirkpatrick. The story that I tell, the picture I paint of that is very different than what you're hearing from more inside people, because they're looking at it through a different lens. It's okay. But here is how I think what happened to Kirkpatrick. But it's based upon a premise which I've put forward countless times. In fact, it's my number one thing. And no one is putting this forward. I've been trying to get on some of the major networks. They're not having any part of it right now, but that's okay. I got podcasts lined up forever. What is this fundamental premise?
I got podcasts lined up forever.
Premise.
I know that feeling.
Everything you've been seeing for the last 7 years, basically, one degree or another, has not been about the government realizing
trying to hack me, guys.
Figure out what's going on in the sky, which is generally what people
Aliens
think.
Are calling Steve
That's
to keep it brief.
The millennials and the Gen Xers, a lot of people think, oh, they finally realize there's something up there.
This
You
guy's
can
a
look at it.
rotary
You can
phone.
set up some organizations, pass them off, whatever. And it's completely not the case at all.
Chat,
It
you're on
has
fire
nothing
tonight.
to do with the government trying to figure this out. The government's known
These people with their
this
hands up are
for
just
17 years.
dead right now.
It's engaging in every conceivable way possible. Every form of research, including very complex consciousness research, remote viewing, everything else that could be connected to ETs in any shape or form.
Probably got to jump in here.
Re-engineering, studying the technology, spending billions of dollars in USAPs. They've been doing that for 70 years. So then what is going on in the last 5 years?
Tell them to choose a woman
It's
for the
simple.
next question.
When disclosure comes, whether it comes from our president first or whether he has to go
Really
third
good.
after Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin, which would be a very bad thing for us. But when disclosure comes, can you imagine how many members of the press are going to jam every single briefing room of every single military intelligence and national security office in our country and around the world with 10,000 questions. The people are going to be, their hair is going to be on fire. The media's going crazy. Can you imagine what that's like? That's the day after disclosure. If the president were to just get up one day on the wrong side of the bed, come out and say, hey, here's a bunch of footage, there's ETs here, I'm going back to bed. That can't happen. Before disclosure happens, they needed to set up all the infrastructure. They needed to pass the laws. They needed to brief Congress. They need to get prepared for that day. And that's what this is.
Who's got to land his plane? Land that plane.
NASA sets up a UFO study.
Next question.
Are you kidding me? But it's helpful. Makes it look good. They set up the UAP task force. They set up the Arrow. Why? So that they go find out what's going on? No, because they need to have something set up. They were both Potemkin villages, but they needed to be staffed.
Sorry, falling asleep, chat.
Did they tell the people that they were working at Potemkin village? Probably not.
I want to look at the Arrow
Did they
thing
tell
later too. Pull it up.
Kirkpatrick that you're a qualified guy, you've got a fine career, and we want you to run this office, but you can't do anything? No. Maybe. I don't know. Not sure. But it's an awful job. You shouldn't have taken it. It's all been preparation for disclosure itself. And what makes this so tough is they can't say that. The government can't say, look, the reason we're doing all of this, and all the briefing and the laws and everything, is that we've got to get ready for when the president confirms the ET presence. Because, of course, the government's position is still, there is no ET presence. And so they've had to misrepresent it. It's that final act of misleading, of misdirection, I guess you could say. But it is for a higher purpose. And this is where things get sticky. There are a lot of people that know this. I certainly do, and many others. Right? But there's some people that don't. There are some people that sort of know it, but they're hoping it'll work out. Kirkpatrick is one such person. So Kirkpatrick is put in charge of this office, which has got a good name. There's legislation being passed. Everything is moving forward nicely so that we can get ready for disclosure and that hearing that's coming.
Oh, boy.
And he doesn't have much to do. He kind of avoids the limelight. Okay, he's not, but he's in a very tough position. Really, he's not going to be able to do much. He can't disclose anything really. And then David Grush drops out of the sky, lands in front of Ross Colville, and then eventually in front of the House subcommittee, and testifies under oath. We've got non-human tech, which I've got colleagues up in Yin Yang that have known that for 30 years. You know how to American people. But he confirms it.
Dude, it's totally in front of a mirror.
He confirms it under oath. He confirms we have bodies. Basically, Grush in that one moment confirmed Roswell. Yeah. He confirmed the ET presence informally. All right? And that was not in the plan. And so now Kirkpatrick is sitting over the head of a Potemkin village in a fairly credible guise. Just said, we have the ET craft. What do you think is going to happen next? Everybody's going to go to Kirkpatrick and say, what do you know about that? And he can't say a damn thing. And even if he knew it was coming, he was hoping it wouldn't come until they got disclosure. But it didn't. And so he's stuck there. He's screwed, and he knew it. And so in his frustration and anger, he mistakenly lashed out against Grush. Possibly because he thought that if he pushed back against Grush, that would make people more reluctant to come to him and say, can you confirm that, Dr. Kirkpatrick? But that wasn't going to work, so he embarrassed himself. It was only going to get worse after that. There was nothing he could do. Grush coming forward didn't mean, oh, that's disclosure, let's get the hearings, let's have it. No, too many things going on. It wasn't supposed to happen. He was a true whistleblower. The 88 people that Rick is talking about are not whistleblowers. There may be 2 or 3. They're witnesses. Grush was a true whistleblower because he stated that the policy was illegal, and he was very likely breaking the law to some degree or another to come forward and tell the truth about that. That's a true whistleblower. That's why he's getting death threats.
Okay.
And that's why I hate to see anybody who's just a witness called a whistleblower.
Get to the next question.
You're just a patriot telling the truth. If you're a whistleblower, you're a traitor, and people are sending you death threats through social media. And so that was the problem that Kirkpatrick faced. It was utterly impossible. And so then he writes a lame article in Scientific American.
This is just story time.
He was kind of a sacrificial man. And ultimately he realized he had to go. And there are those in the Pentagon that try to take advantage of that.
Yeah, I got like 5 more minutes left of this space.
Uber all that took a little advantage of that, maybe twist it a little bit, but it's not going to work. It's it's defense in the red zone on the 2-yard line. It's not gonna work for them. And so Kirkpatrick has moved on.
That's a good question.
Get a new interim director, and if they can get disclosure, meaning we get the hearing in front of the Intel Committee, for I'll just take 20 of those 88 witnesses that Rick is talking about, then the president comes out and discloses, and then the new director is no longer the mayor of the Potemkin village. He is the mayor, the head of, the director of ERA, the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, fully empowered, like the Death Star in the post-disclosure world, to deal with the truth-controlled disclosure process that will be reintroduced by the Senate shortly after disclosure.
Like he has no
He will
off
be a
switch.
very busy person. That organization will be very well funded, and we'll start getting somewhere. That's the outside tape of what Rick is seeing from the inside. So,
wow, still
the truth
going.
is probably the combination of both. Both are important. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Appreciate that very much. I think that, from the UFO disclosure aspect, Sean Kirkpatrick's not really a very popular guy. I think that everybody agrees he's probably pushing out some disinformation out there, at least for the people that believe that UFOs are legit. Let's go to some other. Should we get another question in there? I know some people have had their hands up for a long time. Mello, do you happen to know who was first? Okay, Mello might be able not to go on mute. I see
It's
Framley.
Drew. Drew's been waiting a long time. And
Oh, okay.
Go to the mic.
Next.
Drew, go ahead, Drew.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Hey, Stephen.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, Stephen. I have a couple questions, and there's some things that I would like to say, but I really don't. I don't feel the freedom to say them.
Well, that's fine.
Yeah, I need I need a soundboard.
A lot of it has, and the reason I say that is because a lot of it has to do with my background, and the fear that they put into people in those positions, in those three-letter agencies, it prevents them from stepping forward a lot of times when they know things. They've basically taken an oath, or they've signed papers that that have been a guarantee of their word to not say those things. And so I'm thinking, when you talk about truth and you talk about the change in the paradigms that that prevail in Washington D.C. in within our agencies, that's a really difficult process. I mean, that's something that's going to take a long time to do. Now, we may have certain disclosures, like the little d disclosures you were describing earlier, and we may even have some big D disclosures. I'm curious of how those big D disclosures would change the paradigm in Washington, D.C., or change the modus operandi in Washington, D.C., so that people really, they wanted to see the truth come out, but they knew that the narrative was always going to prevail. And so you have these think tanks, and some of the think tanks, they spin these narratives. They try and figure out, okay, we have these truths, whether they be scientific developments or whether they be political developments, and they try and figure out through these think tanks and through different groups what is going to be the best narrative, or the most believable narrative, that will still protect national security, but we're going to put out as much as we can, but there's still going to be these certain things that they're, you're going to get the truth, but you're not going to get the whole truth. So
okay, I
understand.
just want to hear
what you say about that.
Oh yeah, sure. Look, you withhold something this profound for 77 years. You build a whole infrastructure around it, bury it underground, and put it under deepest classification. You study stuff for decades, and then at some point, the ability to the dam breaks, and there are people saying, "Okay, well, the dam is completely collapsed, but let's just wave our fingers at the water and say just come out a little at a time." That's not the way it works.
What?
Nevertheless, you'd like to have some control.
Does that look different?
And that's where Chuck Schumer made history on the 14th of July. It's kind of cool when you're an activist and involved in something really intensely. You kind of realize history before it's history. That's kind of cool. But eventually, everybody's like, "Oh, that's." But for now, I feel very special. Again, so what happened on the 14th of July?
Wow.
Chuck Schumer, sitting there in the Senate, he has stayed out of the process of legislation that was primarily emanating from the Intel Committee. He's a very political person, as the majority leader, so really stays out. He doesn't want to politicize this, and it was moving along quite nicely. It's about as non-political or partisan thing as there ever was. In fact, people were admitting it.
We don't have any space.
May said this. Some of the senators have said this.
I'm gonna probably drop off this.
Yeah, this is a nonpartisan issue, and they treated it that way. So good. So Chuck stayed out. But then Grush showed up. Grush said we have non-human bodies. And by the way, when he said that, he had already run everything by Doster that he was going to say in that hearing, and they cleared him. The only time I think he stepped, I guess you could say, outside.
I'm just leaving right now. I can't do it anymore, guys. Okay. Whoa. We did it as much as we could do there. Steve's a nice guy. He's very knowledgeable. But man, I need a little more fast-paced back and forth, you know. Just hearing people go off for 15 minutes straight is not my idea of a conversation. So wanted to switch off that, guys. We're gonna switch gears here real quickly on this. So I've been out there trying to mend some bridges, guys. If you saw my replies, and if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat here right now. Mello's asking me to come back. What do I need to come back for, man? Just let me be done with that space. So I've been trying to mend some bridges. You saw probably my replies with Ross Colehart. Like, the reality is, early on, I thought that that maybe people were disinformation agents. Oh no, I'm dropping. No, okay. And I think the reality now is that it's a lot more complex. Oh, the light's looking pretty good. The situation is that people are just, they just don't believe it, right? You just don't believe it. I mean, it's just, it's hard for people to believe that you can teleport a plane. Now, I've been saying that you can teleport a plane and that the science will be proven that you can teleport a plane, and I think that's good enough, right? We've done enough. What I've been doing is pushing the paradigm far, far beyond what people are ready for, right? Are we going to see an interview with Jack Sarfati? I hope so. I think that an interview with Jack Sarfati would get huge amounts of viewers. I think that just the conflict in general, the debunkers would want to see him yelling at me. I would let him. I don't care. I was trying to mend bridges with Jack Sarfati as well. And hopefully we can get that to happen. I'm not entirely sure. Because, I mean, he's saying the same stuff we're saying, right? Like, he's saying the same stuff. Obviously, I don't know the science as good as he does. He's a guy's been doing it for 60 years or whatever, right? But he can teach us some stuff, right? Plus, I'm kind of prickly like he is. I feel like I'd be a good understudy for him, you know? And, you know, I probably have similar feelings about some of these people in the UFO community like he does, too. Yeah, I think people would love that interview, honestly. And we have a pretty big following these days, so it can get him a lot of exposure to the stuff that he wants to do. Yeah, I think him calling me a wise ass would be like the least controversial name that he would call me. Either way, I think it would be hilarious. No, I didn't really chat directly much with Ross, but he did like my tweet or my reply where I mentioned apologizing to him. Because again, like, I'm starting to think, though, that it's more of a situation where just not only is the information we're disclosing too hard to believe, but that they think that I'm disinformation, right? They think like, oh, this guy's talking about teleporting. That can't be real, right? How could this random guy know about all this, right? And so they probably think it's disinformation, right? And the reality is this is why it's so easy to keep this stuff hidden, is no side really understands who's lying and who's telling the truth, you know? And that's what I think will make it easier for people to, you know, when we need to start rebuilding the bridges, I guess, is the way to look at it, right? And also, if I start mending the bridges with Sarfati, maybe we can get Sarfati and Paez together, Salvatore Paez, in the same space at some point in the future, which I think would be awesome, because I mean they're both talking about the same thing, right? They're both talking about this idea of teleporting stuff being able to be real, and moving faster than the speed of light, and I have a feeling their equations are identical as well. The truth is that I don't think either of them are the people who've discovered this, right? Neither of them are the ones who discovered this. They're both just trying to get the science out there. And there's plenty of credit or whatever these people want to go around. I personally don't give a crap about any of the credit, right? I just want to help get the information out there to help, the world. And I have a connection to Tim Ventura as well. He's a super cool guy. I think that I kind of look at myself a little bit similar to Tim Ventura, where Tim Ventura is the kind of guy who's been talking to a lot of these engineers and scientists behind the scenes, right? And I think that in some ways, like he's easier to approach than I am, for sure. But from my perspective, like I just know how to use social media a little bit better, just because I'm a little bit younger. So pretty interesting. No comment on the Schellenberger thing. He did follow me at one point. I'll say that. But I don't know, if you're dealing with like journalists that are big as Schellenberger, you don't really talk about it too much, right? But I will agree. I have huge respect for Schellenberger, right? But one sec, chat. Keep in mind that even for people like Schellenberger, what we're talking about here is too big. Hell, just teleporting a plane is too big, right? Just teleporting a plane is too big. Even if there was no other consequences, most people can't believe that teleporting a plane is possible. And these are people that are disclosing UFOs, right? So the idea that not only are we teleporting a plane, but that it's also the largest conspiracy in the history of the world, and our own government is the one responsible, that's a lot. That's a lot for people, guys. That's a lot. Now, is it true? Yes, I'm 100% convinced that it's true. I mean, it's just the evidence is overwhelming, right? The evidence is absolutely overwhelming. We're in a situation here where we know the government, U.S. government, knows what happened to the plane. We know 100% sure that they know. And the story doesn't make any sense. We searched for this plane everywhere where they said we should find it. We didn't find anything, right? That the logical conclusion is that the data that led us to that location is not correct, right? The moment you throw that data out, it's really apparent what happened. It was a fire, and it was probably some orbs teleported the plane. Crazy enough as it is. So, it's a lot for people to take in. There's a lot of these people have everything on the line. A lot of them probably think that we are disinformation ourselves, right? So this is a lot more complex than I thought it was at first. If you had me now talk to me 6 months ago, it would be a totally different story. I probably would approach it a slightly different way as well, probably in a more diplomatic way. The reason why I was so aggressive early on is I didn't know what the F was going on, man. I really had no idea what was going on. Right? Yeah, guys, like, I don't even... The truth is, like, people ask me about, like, Joe Rogan, and, like, am I upset that Joe Rogan canceled the thing? Like, not really. Because the more I realize, like, how much these videos, the MH370 videos... literally broke people's brains, guys. Like, I don't even joke when I say that. The MH370 videos broke people's brains. They actually broke their brains. People were melting down just at the idea that those videos could be real. People have made up fake stories in their head that I'm hurting the families and scamming and grifting people. All of this stuff is fake, right? But because people need to believe that their reality is stable and that we can't do all these crazy stuff, they're willing to believe literally anything about me, right? This just goes to show how people's brains get literally broken by this kind of information. And I don't say this to put them down. I'm just telling you this is just the way a human mind works. It's called cognitive dissonance. I've talked about it before, right? Is that what happens is you have a preconceived belief, and if that preconceived belief is attacked, then what the mind does automatically is it attempts to make up fake information so that you can maintain the preconceived belief. Right? You can see this happen throughout your life all over the place, guys. All over the place, right? Same thing that's happening here is that they know that teleportation cannot be real. So what does that mean? That means Ashton must be a liar. That means Ashton must be a grifter, right? This is how cognitive dissonance works, right? We've addressed all the debunks. Nobody has ever addressed any of our evidence, never once, not even tried. Just keep this in mind, guys. Nobody has ever once in the last 6 months ever addressed any of our evidence, ever. Nobody. Not a single person. Just think about that for a second. How weird is that? Nobody. So when people talk about, like, this is where I'm talking about when the Nazca mummy people think that they're going to get some kind of glowing reception. They're going to get crucified. The media is going to crucify them. Social media is going to crucify them. That's just how it is, guys. Like, I think that I've already gone through that awakening of realizing it's well beyond even what I thought with Bob Lazar, right? Bob Lazar, yes, Ellie, that is confirmation bias. You must have just joined because I literally said that. But welcome, Ellie, to the chat. Bob Lazar, like, he got crucified, right? They destroyed his school records, potentially. He thought he was going to be a hero, right? It's even worse now. And to who posted it a second ago? Okay, so Lobster says it broke brains, but it also woke up some people. Like, you guys are now awakened, right? The people in this chat have been awakened. Like, they've realized that there's some crazy ass technology out there that's way more advanced than anybody expected, right? And here's the thing, chat. When it comes to UFOlogy, I think that the people that were awake were ready for it to be something that's like way more than we were willing to accept. And we start talking about teleportation tech, that's way more than most people are ready to accept, guys. Hey, William, I love you too, buddy. I hope you're doing well, man. And so, I think that there's only two ways that you can either adjust your worldview to incorporate the idea that this stuff can be real, and that's what we've done, right? Is we haven't tried to change the parameters, we've just adjusted our worldview. The people in this chat go, okay, well, aliens can be real, it makes sense, aliens have to get here somehow. Or they think that, okay, quantum mechanics and general relativity can be unified, and when we unify them, now this leads to a possibility where we can achieve superluminal speeds, right? And what does that mean? There's some huge implications, right? Those huge implications are, and I'm doing my best Steve Bassett impression right now. Those huge implications are that the world, that our reality is a matrix. Oh, did I say the wrong thing? I meant confirmation bias. Okay, Ellie is correcting me, chat. It was confirmation bias, not cognitive dissonance. RIP. But it's also cognitive dissonance a little bit as well. So, our world it's a matrix, right? There's an underlying framework to it. And in addition to that, we have this idea that space is not empty. Once you combine both of those factors, there's no issue with superluminal speeds. This is where we open the world up to magic, right? And this is the part that's so challenging for people. And the reason why it's so challenging is that regardless of if you're a debunker or if you're a believer, regardless if you're on the left side of the political spectrum or the right side of the political spectrum, a lot of people only believe whatever academia has taught them, right? And academia is not out there saying that we have an extra dimension. The academia is not out there saying that there is empty space has, energy in it, right? And since they're not saying that, then people don't believe it to be true. They think it can't be possible. Hey, Diamond, welcome, my man. I love Diamond, guys. Oppenheimer Ranch Project, make sure you guys are following him. He's out there. Solar Marshall's out here as well. And yeah, Solar, I know that you think that the Bob Lazar stuff's fake. I personally don't agree. I think that he's been discredited for sure. But there's no way someone's coming up with all this stuff on their own, man. Like, especially like the hand thing as well that turned out to be real. Like, he knows some stuff. Whether or not he's on the up and up, like, he had compartmentalized access to information, right? I don't think anybody does what Bob Lazar did unless you really saw something. And the reason why I say that is because it's the same thing for me as well, right? People don't do what I'm doing and come out with this information and put yourself on the line and put your real name behind it and tell everybody your whole personal life story unless you confidently believe what you're disclosing, right? And again, I can be wrong, but I'm not a liar. That's the difference, right? Yeah, Solar, I've seen it all, man. I'm not trying to put you down or anything, but I've seen all the discrediting and what have you. I've seen it all about Bob Lazar. End of the day, like some other people mentioned in the chat, the testimony of David Grush does, support a lot of what Bob Lazar was saying. He could be a liar. He could be, at this point, doesn't even really matter, right? Like, we know Area 51, the Groom Lake, and the testing facility there is real. At this point, if you believe that the witness testimonies to Congress, then the United States government has some craft. To me, the question is, what's the nature of the phenomenon, right? That's to me the big question is at this point is not whether or not we have craft or whether or not the stuff is real. It's a matter of like, are there really aliens visiting us? Are they extraterrestrials? Are they really just us? And that, we've had some kind of weird memory loss of our history, or is there something super effing crazy going out there? So what I'll also say too is that, everything could be a cis equals OPP. I don't know what that means. Here's my opinion, guys. You want my true opinion? A lot of people have asked me what I believe about aliens and stuff like that. And my true opinion on that at this point, and this is just a guess, guys. This is just my opinion. It's nothing. Don't take this to the bank or anything. But I think that if this kind of technology is real, like we can teleport objects, then the most likely scenario to me is that we're some kind of prison planet. That aliens could literally be us, or they could be something completely different. Maybe they're mantids, I don't know. But I would say that they're most likely thousands or millions of years more advanced than we are. And if that's the case, then we're just literally ants to them. And we could be some kind of prison planet. The craziest to me would be like if aliens look just like us, that aliens are us, and that they crashed here a long time ago and we've lost our technological superiority that we used to have just because of our amnesia of how we die or something like that. That would be super crazy to me. But yeah, that's my best guess when it comes to what this all means, is that I think that technologically we are the equivalent of cavemen, and that we think that we are super powerful, but I think we're just literally cavemen. And we think that we've discovered all this stuff. We've got computers and all this stuff, and we think we're super advanced, but we are just at the end of the ruler on the opposite side of where we think we are right now, right? And then we've got so much further to go, right? That's what I truly believe about our civilization at the moment. And that would imply that could be other civilizations that are much, much more advanced than us. And when you think about that, Dr. Stephen Greer would say that means they must be benevolent. But I don't agree. I do not agree with that. I don't think that they have to be benevolent just because, that they haven't destroyed us yet. I think that in the cosmic scheme of our civilization has just been like the blink of an eye, right? And for that perspective, we could easily be a zoo or a prison planet, and they could come and wipe us out whenever they feel like we've become a threat or that we've achieved a certain level of technological superiority, right? So I don't know, right? This is just my opinion. Don't have hard facts for any of this, of course. But that's probably where at this point what I would think. And it wouldn't surprise me if we have alien bodies somewhere, just because for me, the strongest evidence of alien bodies is actually the EBO scientist post. That's actually the strongest evidence for me, because that's just too damn elaborate. Do you guys remember when we did the EBO scientist review? The EBO scientist review took me like an hour to read through on chat. I actually like almost lost my voice just going through it. It was so long, and it's all like detailed physiology of an alien body. Like, to me, that's the best evidence. Like, that is wow. Okay, if somebody went out there and they made up a whole physiology of every single system within the alien body, that is damn impressive. I mean, it's not impossible to make that up, but that's just really impressive. And a lot of the details were like literally real. Like, the stuff about the lab stuff I told you guys was like, I know for a fact all the lab equipment they talked about was real, and all the terminology related to the lab stuff. And people were trying to pick it apart, and all they could pick apart was like, oh, he said distal instead of medial for like which finger or which joint it was. I'm like, that's it? Okay, it was like 25 pages long, and that's the best we've got? Okay. So I don't know, Chad. I think that the world is really exciting, and we will see in the future. Yeah, no, I did record the EBO scientist post. It should be on one of my live streams. If you listen to it, I literally get exhausted through it, and I couldn't even pronounce half the medical terms, and that's scary because I'm literally in healthcare. I have to build a lot of this stuff, and I don't even know how to say a lot of it, right? But when you start to get into genetics and a lot of that, like, a lot of the terminology is really hard to pronounce. So, yeah, the EBL scientist post is really convincing. And not only was it really convincing, but they got deleted on Reddit in real time while in the middle of answering questions. Like, their account got deleted. Like, they were posting replies to people, and when they posted the reply, it said their account was literally deleted. Like, that's like, okay, to me, that's like the government is stepping in, using their back door, and they're wiping that person's account out because they're talking a little too much, right? Because why else? I've never even seen that happen on Reddit before. Why would they even do that? Right? If that's fake, then you're not deleting someone's account in real time. That's the part to me is like, that's super weird. That's more convincing to me than any of these videos of aliens or anything like that. Way more convincing. But that's just my personal opinion. People wanted me to react to the space on News Nation. Let's take a look at that real quick, chat. Amanda. Amanda, guys. I was like, join Ashton, the most amazing online chat discussing disclosure. And then I look at it. Oh, this is me. Thick D disclosure with Steve Bassett and Rick Doty. I appreciate you, Amanda. I appreciate you bringing it up here. Whenever people try to call me out, I try to always respond as much as I can. Then I realized, oh, that's what I called it. Thick D disclosure. What do I think about the flying triangles? Yeah, guys, so my opinion, thank you. So the EBO Scientist Reviews was January 11th, if you want to go back through the live streams. I've done a crap of live streams, crap load of them. The TR3B flying triangles, I used to think that was all fake. I thought the TR3B stuff was like some made-up mumbo-jumbo, honestly. That's what I used to think. What I will say is Eric Davis, you can't trust what Eric Davis says, guys. Eric Davis literally has scientific papers talking about teleportation, and then he'll come out and say that, like, it can't be real. It's like, but, dude, you literally wrote a paper about it. Like, Eric Davis, in my opinion, is spreading disinformation, so be very careful of what you believe about him. Now, the reason why I think the TR3B could be real now is that I've literally seen 3 orbs floating around a plane in a triangle formation, right? So to me, I don't know. I just know that we've got some crazy orbs that can make triangle formations, so I'm not ruling out black triangles and stuff like that. And even before that, I always thought that there's been a lot of triangle formation stuff, but I've never really seen like a solid black triangle, right? So I still don't know if these triangles that we see, these TR3Bs, or if that's like a physical triangle, or if that's just 3 orbs in formation. I have no idea. But like I say it to a lot of stuff, guys, my mind is wide open when it comes to this stuff at this point. I think that like everything could be real. Man, this Cobra Tate Ryan Garcia thing is going wild. I'm not going to report on it, but also just for the record, guys, if you were confused by my post this morning, which I think apparently a lot of people were, this one. Okay, if you don't get this one, all men of caliber ever do is ignore the psyops and try to figure out how to reveal advanced technology to the world. Andrew Tate showed up on my home screen today, and it said all men of caliber ever do is ignore the baddies, as in like the hot women or whatever, that are like trying to take advantage of you, and then try to figure out how to defeat the Matrix. That's what he wrote. He said, all men of caliber ever do is ignore the baddies and try to figure out how to defeat the Matrix. So what I did was I took the same video and I just changed it around. Ignore the psyops, because I think this was from 007 where she ends up being a spy. Right? Doesn't she end up being a spy and like trying to rip him off? And and like the secret is he knows about it here, I think. Right? And then he's thinking about like all the different psyops that are going on, right? On how he's getting like outplayed by her and what have you. Honestly, I love this one. This video. You just got a hot woman just like touching on him. He's just drinking, thinking about something else. I love it. I love this video. He's just like, how do I reveal advanced technology to the world? She's like, she's definitely a spy. She's 100% a spy, guys. He's like, yeah, I know she's a spy, but the sex is pretty good. Let me drink my Rolling Rock, whatever he's drinking right here. Okay, so now you guys get this joke. Hopefully, it doesn't go over your guys' head. This was crazy, man. This was crazy. I wish I had more time to edit this down today, but I was super busy with stuff. I had to do work. I was working on some other stuff. I mean, it's crazy. This guy literally says he was part of the search operation and that he knew they were talking about searching in the wrong spot because he was searching over to the west the next day. I knew the very next day. Look at this. Kidding me?
I knew the very next day.
I knew the very next day.
Which direction
the direction the airplane went. And I sat there for 2 weeks, he says.
And I sat for 2 weeks and watched why
the entire world was searching in the wrong location. Guys, this makes no sense. How can people look at the situation with this plane and think there's nothing going on? The more shit I look at, the more I'm like, guys, I don't know if I gotta hit you on the head with a hammer to make people realize that like planes don't disappear in 2014. That's not what planes do. Planes can't disappear. We have monitoring the whole globe. Why would we be searching the South China Sea when all these governments know the plane's not there? Just think about that for a second. Malaysian government knows the plane's not in the South China Sea. They've got everybody searching in the west, in the Nicobar Islands, where literally the plane that disappears in our videos. But they are still, the TV's talking about the South China Sea. How does that make sense? It doesn't make any damn sense. Please say a few words on the Duncan Cameron and 3 UFOs black hole clip. I think, is that the one that somebody linked to me? I may have to do that tomorrow, guys. Yeah, this case never made any sense. The Poetry and Prose's comment, this case never made any sense. And I think that's what got me, to some degree, so interested in it. Because it never made any damn sense. I remember following the narratives, hoping for one that made sense. And then they're like, oh, well, it was a pilot suicide. I'm like, huh? Pilot suicide? And I went along with it because a lot of cases of planes crashing are pilot suicide. That's the only reason why I went along with it. And then once you start to realize, like, no, this is not, you start to dig into this, you realize there's no fucking way this is pilot suicide. No way, man. No way. Yeah, and so this is why Poetry, good comments. Poetry says, I used to follow Jeff Wise's blog. I didn't buy the Russian thing, but I knew he was right that the plane crashed. Exactly. What I realized right away is a lot of these investigators, they knew that this plane didn't crash. because you don't have there's no debris field, right? But then they started making up all their own theories, right? And I will criticize them slightly here, although I still respect them, which is, Jeff Wise was so close. He implicated the wrong government. It's not Russia. It's the United States. Florence Tchangi, who I have the utmost respect for. I love her. I have a mini crush on her just because she's so smart. But the plane, in my opinion, did not go to Vietnam, right? I think that's where her theory diverges, is the idea that the plane continued on its direction as opposed to cutting back, right? And this is the difference between our theories and both of their theories, is that we use more evidence than anyone. We take all the evidence in. We don't dismiss any of it. All the witnesses as well. And then we just say, okay, the only thing you have to fake here is some Immerstat pings. And why does it make sense to claim that the Immerstat pings are faked? Because we didn't find any debris field. Not only did we not find a debris field, we didn't find any debris. We didn't find a plane above or below water anywhere. Right? It's like there's no crash field, no crash, right? It's really that simple. If you don't have a debris field, there's no crash in the ocean. There's no way we could have missed it. It would be gigantic. It would have been a gigantic debris field. I used to follow Victor Ilanello's blog back in the day. That's how I knew that the suicide pilot scenario is bullshit. Because I remember I read his blog post about how the simulator data didn't match up. That the simulator data was just MH150 to Jeddah. I remember reading that and I'm like, yeah, that is MH150 to Jeddah. It literally goes from Kuala Lumpur to Jeddah to the northwest. And they try to claim that that's the suicide route. That's not a suicide route. That's not him practicing a route. No chance. And this goes to show how different like the media and how the media crafts the perception of events. Is they report, they found a ping that was similar. It's like, what, one plot point? There was also a plot point for Diego Garcia. Does that prove that it went to Diego Garcia? Right? It's wild. Let me find the other post. So also, guys, check out the podcast with Brian from Searching for the Political Identity. Did a good podcast with him. It was about an hour. It's a little bit shorter. I also today finished a podcast with Steven Diener. Is that how you say his name? Diener? I'm going to go with Diener. He's awesome. We've done like 2 or 3 parts with him. Super cool guy, right? And I went kind of off on the debunkers on this one. We went through the whole cloud debunk on this one, and he didn't know about it, right? And so a lot of people will have criticized me for not addressing the debunk, so I went ahead and addressed the hell out of all of them. So you guys can check that out if you want. Elon Musk retweeted this post. This is the post that I replied to yesterday. 10 people pinged me into this, and I'm like, okay, what's going on? And I see this, and I'm like, wait a minute. This is the dude that talks about superconductivity that, like, has a really, I don't know if he used AI to come up with this, but this is really good analysis. He even talks a little bit about the lattice structures, I think, in terms of they can create high temperature superconductivity. And I replied to this yesterday. And apparently Elon Musk retweeted it, and now it's got like 13 million views, right? Oh, he didn't reply to me, but where's my reply? There it is. 40,000 views on my reply on this one. And this was me posting like afterwards as well. So, yeah, pretty interesting. Okay. Now where is the, so Elon Musk definitely, Elon Musk is 100% seeing the MH370 stuff. It's his platform. We were getting hundreds of millions of views. He knows Kim.com. It's 100% certainty that Elon Musk knows. Also, I'll try to reply to more of these questions. There's 103. I'll try to reply to more of these guys. We hit 80,000 followers. I decided that I would do an AMA. Also, when people post clips like this, I like to go ahead and retweet them. Probably going to do some more of that kind of stuff. So, let me finish one more olive, guys, and we'll keep going. Oh, wow. It's late. Okay, guys. We're going to do the News Nation piece, and then we're going to stop after that because, wow, it's getting late, and I'm going to be really tired. So Steven Diener's podcast with me is going to drop tomorrow, or at least the first half. We went for an hour, which is long for his. His only go like 30, 45 minutes. So that was pretty long. Where's the Ross Coulthart thing? Okay, so now you guys are starting to get the joke. Good. I almost posted Andrew Tate's original so that people would understand the joke. But then I was like, I'm going to have a million people yelling at me about how Andrew Tate's the worst human being. I'm like, dude, I'm just making a joke. I'm just making a joke. Guys, I literally follow everybody who's large because just in case they would ever want to reach out, you can only DM me if I follow you. So that's the main reason why I follow everybody. It doesn't mean I think they're the greatest person in the world. Thank you, Be Happy. I appreciate that message. She says, I think you were chosen because you encompass skills and smarts needed for truth finally. You said last week you must be protected, and I've thought that since I found you. It made me cry. Wow, that's really, really nice comment. Be Happy. Very nice, happy. Or very nice comment, Be Happy. Appreciate you. Yeah, truth is I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, I've been talking about some crazy stuff that even me from a couple of years ago would probably be on the debunker side, saying that I'm full of shit as well. So that's the part where like it's hard for me to get too upset at anybody who you know doesn't believe it, because it's a lot to take in. You know, it means a lot. It has a lot to do with a lot. It means a lot with respect to the nature of our reality. The real reason why I'm confused in terms of why I haven't been talked to or silenced is that, and we'll get to the, don't worry, we'll get to the News Nation thing, guys, is that the Malaysian Airlines Flight 370 thing is potentially the largest conspiracy ever, right? And that's the thing where, that's the part where I think they would have quieted me. The technology side, I think that they would just let it go because they're going to be like, no one will believe it anyway, right? The MH370 conspiracy side of it's the part where I kind of expected them to talk to me because, holy shit, the U.S. government's implicated. This goes all the way up to President Obama. This goes up to President Obama. I even voted for him, right? That's the part where I would have figured they would be like, hey, man, shut the hell up, right? Like, stop talking about this, because people are going to start putting it together, man. Like, you guys started putting it together. Like, we've put it together. The cover-up was not even that good. And this is the part, too, where you guys should listen to Steven on the podcast tomorrow, because we talk about this, where I talk about, like, again, that the cover-up wasn't even good on this. Like, it was so sketchy, the way that the information was being withheld and how they weren't searching in the right spot and all this stuff. Like, none of this makes any sense. They're absolutely, even without the MH370 videos, we know something else happened to this plane, right? We know it. I wish there was a better example. Like, you know, let's say that the MH370 videos didn't exist. I would say the next most likely scenario is that they remote controlled the plane, just like Captain Dan Hanley was talking about. To me, that's the next most likely. If teleportation is not possible, which unfortunately I think it is, I would say that it's the remote control scenario. Makes the most sense. Because this plane just simply did not crash into the South Indian Ocean, right? It's just that simple. And the debris that they found is out in Africa. To me, that debris has to come from like somewhere closer to Africa. It's not coming from somewhere near Australia. So that debris had to have happened somewhere near the Maldives, at least, in my opinion. Right? What's this? Whoa. Hello. 6.1 million views? Hell yeah. What's this? Wow, that's awesome. This is how people are knowing about it, right? Because people like, and this is the thing too, like, I'm not telling people not to share stuff. Like, I just tell people, like, look, you got TikTok or whatever, go nuts, dude. I'm never getting on TikTok. So, you want to share my stuff on TikTok? Go crazy, man. 40,000 views, 40,000, 6.1 million, right? Go crazy, man. Go crazy. Share it, you know? That's huge. I love it. We can do some questions real quick here. Hey, morning. Yeah, morning, Enrique. Hey, that UFO chick. Appreciate you. Have we seen your channel? That UFO chick. I'll give you a subscribe. Although you don't have any videos. No videos. That UFO chick, you need some videos. Have you investigated? Is this the first time this technology has been used? It may go all the way back to the Philadelphia. I think this technology could go super far back, guys. I have no idea. What's this? Oh, these guys. Guys, I have to say, it's kind of an honor to get added by these people that are like, I must be on this one. I don't know where I'm getting added at. People at me with like people like Tucker Carlson, like Joe Rogan and stuff, and Alex Jones. I'm like, those guys are so far above me. And I'm like, oh, okay. That's pretty nice. Okay. Here it is. Here's the clip. Found it. I knew someone would post it because I've got like 77 likes on this reply to him. To Ross Coulthart. We're trying to mend the bridges with Ross Coulthart. I think that a lot of these guys just come from a old school mentality.
It's 10 years since the
where
disappearance
this
of the
kind of
Malaysian
stuff can't
Airlines
be
Flight
real.
370, and we're
Let's
nowhere
watch a little bit of
closer
this.
to an explanation of what happened now than we were then. But the Malaysian government said,
Oh, that's you, UFO chick. You're the one from the Alien Addict. Thank you very much. Appreciate you. That's awesome. Okay, let's listen to this for a second. Yeah, welcome to the stream. I think this is the first time I've seen you on here. Yeah, Artisan Tony, I think what I like about Artisan Tony is that Artisan Tony doesn't have a huge platform, but he's like a normal guy like me, right? But he's been much more on the ground level of the UFOlogy stuff than I have been. But that's what I want people to realize too, is that I'm just a normal guy who got into the craziest shit ever, right? To me, this is the craziest story in my whole life. The letter to me is the weirdest shit that's ever happened in my whole life. Yeah, so if you haven't seen the letter to Ashton Forbes, Google that later on YouTube. Because, man, that is just mind-blowing. But when you come at this from a normal perspective, you have no idea. Like, here's the thing. Again, I'm going to say this one more time. I know I'm repeating myself here, but when you come into this and you are like getting red pilled like crazy and you're like, this is the hugest conspiracy ever, and you don't know who's a psyop, who's disinformation, what's real, what's not anymore, right? And this is the reason why I was so aggressive early on, is I didn't know I just thought like everybody was paid for, right? I was sitting there thinking like these people are all being used or paid for or what have you. And now that I've had the time of like 6 months of dealing with it and all this stuff and all the BS and the attacks, I think it's really just a matter of like, this is so far out there, so beyond the paradigm, that most people that are rational thinkers think it can't be possible, right? And to me, that tells us that there's some things we can glean from that, right? The big one is that this is most likely not human technology, at least not of original origin, in my opinion. Because I don't think that we could get so technologically advanced that the secret technology breaks people's minds without help. So that's the part of the reason why I think it's reverse engineered, because the only way that we could have technology that's so mind-bending that we literally have orbs that can float around and teleport a plane, to me, that's got to be reverse engineered somehow, right? That's why it's mind-bending, because this is actually technology that's thousands of years more advanced. We just got access to it too early. That's what makes the most sense to me. And if that's the case, then it makes sense why even the UFO disclosure people like hate us. It's not even necessarily that they know. They might not even know, right? Like imagine Ross Coulthart. Ross Coulthart might not even know this technology is real, right? He's just sitting here talking to people about metamaterials and aliens might be real. He's not having people come to him and be like, no, we can actually just teleport an object from one room to the other faster than the speed of light. Because that's some mind-bending stuff, man. This actually makes me wonder, and this is the thing I've been wondering about as I've been learning the science, is like, does this break causality? Like, guys, if you check out our science streams from last week, we were talking about this. Because when you start, everything we know in time itself is based on the speed of light. So if we are going faster than the speed of light, what does that mean about time? That's the thing that keeps me up at night. Like, can we actually travel back in time? I know we can travel forward in time. That's easy. Traveling forward in time is easy. The question that keeps me up is, can you travel back in time? The way that I perceive reality would tell me, no, you cannot. But if you can move faster than the speed of light, you can bend space-time itself. This is the part where like I need to talk to like people like Jack Sarfati and some more people about this kind of stuff until we can figure it out. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at this because we're getting sidetracked. So I won't say I'm offended. I'm not really offended, but I'm disappointed that Ross Coulthart doesn't even bring up the idea of the orb videos. I mean, guys, everybody knows about the orb videos. We've got hundreds of millions of impressions, okay? Hundreds of millions. If you go across all the social medias, like we had somebody just show us that they got like 50 million impressions or something, right, on their one channel. My guess is we're like close to 1 billion impressions on this, right? Which is huge. And no media will pick up on it. So at least at a minimum, you deserve like, and there's a conspiracy out there that some orbs teleported the plane to the Xenu dimension or whatever. At least, I don't care. Go ahead and say it if you want to say it, right? But at least give the videos a little bit of credit at this point, guys. We're not in a situation where they like found the whole plane somewhere. We're in a situation where they found nothing. They didn't find any plane. They found debris that washed up in Africa, right? I think we're okay to at least talk about the videos on TV, right? So this is why I'm a little disappointed in Ross Coulthart. But my guess based on what my interaction is, he's got a little bit of lingering CNN brain, and he's getting over his CNN brain right when he comes to the UFOlogy topic, but he's still got a ways to go. That's my true opinion. And I actually don't think Ross Coulthart's a plant anymore. I just think that he's being a little bit used and that he's not been told the full truth about the nature of what this technology can do.
This week, it's open to relaunching a new search, and an American deep ocean exploration company is offering to do it. 239 people were on board that flight to Beijing when it disappeared somewhere over the southern Indian Ocean. Joining me now is News Nation special correspondent and investigative reporter Ross Coulthart, who's covered this story for the last decade. Ross, it's always good to see you. I mean, talk about a development.
Ross Coulthart kind of looks like a White Walker, though. I don't know.
Time, especially for those families.
No offense, Ross, but
10
you kind of look like a White Walker.
Without any sort of answer.
I know, and it's heartbreaking, Marky. I've been talking to Australian families who've lost loved ones, Malaysian families and Chinese families, and all of them feel the pain, and it gets worse as each year goes by. And now the Malaysian government's talking once again about possibly funding another search. There's been...
Is it weird to anybody else that they're talking to Ross Coulthart about the MH370 stuff? Did he do any investigation into MH370? Like beyond the videos, just like in general? Like why is the UFO guy being talked to about MH370?
Been two previously, of course, both.
I don't know what breaking points is, but sure.
Unsuccessful. There's been, I think.
Oh, and just real quick, guys, I do have some podcasts planned that are going to go beyond the retirement time because they're just scheduling reasons. So That's just how it is.
43 pieces of debris that are thought to be related to the plane that have been recovered.
For the record, guys, there's not 43 pieces that they've found. They found 43 pieces that they think might have some chance of being connected to the plane. As far as I know, there's still only 3 pieces that have been confirmed tied to the plane. Okay, so when you talk about 43 and then there's really only 3 pieces, it's a little bit misleading. A little bit misleading. Some of these pieces, like I think some of them are even like cup holders or like, you know, water bottles. Like, you know, some of this stuff absolutely is not part of the plane. Some maybe some of it is, right? Again, not inconsistent with our theory anyway. But yeah.
Over the years, but no definitive answer yet on what.
Yeah, the new evidence. Nobody knows what the new evidence is. I think that what they mean is they're talking about Richard Godfrey's analysis, I think, where like basically, and I think there's a graphic later on where they've decided like there's one part where somehow they didn't check it already, but like I've looked at the search thing and they already checked. They already checked all up and down the 7th arc. There's nowhere else for it to check. And this is why, guys, if you have any of these experts come to you and say that the videos are fake or whatever, you just tell them like, okay, where'd the plane crash? Point to it on the map. Because they literally checked they've looked everywhere. There's no way you can hide a debris field of this size. They looked everywhere and found nothing. So you just tell them, point on the map where you think that it is, right? And this is where it shuts them up every time.
Exactly happened, and that's what the families want. They want to know how this disaster happened, and I think also a lot of people want to try and allay the conspiracy theories that have come to pass. There's a hell of a lot being said about MH370, which could easily be disproven if the wreckage is eventually found.
Okay, so that's a fair comment. Yes, I mean, if they find the wreckage, they could disprove the MH370 videos, right? That's why they're never going to find them. Oh, thanks, UFO Chick. Appreciate you. Appreciate you. The Latino Lover. Yeah. Guys, the Latino Lover, if you're not familiar with this, Moneypenny made this yesterday. My favorite part about this... Why is it not working? There we go. I just become super hot in the middle of this. I literally just become like Latino in the middle of this. And for some reason it says Zav at the end here. Is that a cat picture in the background as well? Is this version of me have a cat picture in the background? Oh, definitely. That's definitely a cat. Damn, look how hot I got. Holy shit. Man, even this might turn me gay. Wow. And I have a chain all of a sudden. This is the joke. Chat, I'm not going to lie. I love that graphic. I'm actually probably going to use that graphic as my new intro because that's how much I love it. And it's a little bit shorter than my super long one, so definitely like it. But yes, if they can... Yeah, that's Lulu's inner cat, honestly. Yeah, that Lulu is wrong side of the door kitty. Every time she's outside now, she like hits the glass, and then I open the door for her, and then she just stares at me. She doesn't even come inside. She just stares at me like a cat does. I swear she's more cat than dog. But yeah, if they found the debris, if they found the plane, that would diffuse all the conspiracy theories. But they didn't. They searched for 3 years. They searched for 3 years and didn't find one piece of the plane. Like, where do they think this plane is hiding? Where do they think the plane's hiding, chat? There's nowhere else for to hide the plane. So anyway, let's keep going.
And you talk about, all those searches and individual investigations.
What does PMSL stand for, chat? Let me know. I don't know what PMSL stands for. I'm too boomer.
That have been conducted. The Malaysian government and other countries have spent $130 million.
Oh yeah. And I turned into Iron Man at the last second. I love it.
$1 searching, for this aircraft just in 2017. They found nothing then. Now you have this Texas-based company coming forward that's offered to lead the search. They say they have new technology. Ross, what do you think that actually looks like?
New technology?
Well, Ocean Infinity, led by a chap called Oliver Plunkett, is one.
Here you go, chat. Okay, chat, we're going to debunk possible contact with the flight recorder, okay? They did not find the flight recorder, okay? There's no black boxes. There was no possible contact with the flight recorder. They knew this location was bullshit. And how did they know the location was bullshit? The frequency was incorrect. The frequency that the black boxes transmit on is extremely specific. And this frequency they detected was not that frequency. It turned out that it was just the devices that they send in the water that were searching for it was defective. It was broken. So this is total bullshit. Like, this goes to show how easily, this is News Nation, guys, lying to you guys on national television. There was no possible contact with a flight recorder. They knew there was 0% chance, right? They've got this huge arc, and they've searched all along it, right? And look, this is the closest location for the wreckage. They only circle the one. The rest of the wreckage is over here in Africa, in South Africa. This is over 3,000 miles away. 3,000 miles away. And they found this debris in a year or like 18 months. This debris supposedly had to float. Let me look it up. Had to float 10 miles per day in a straight line over 500 days in order to reach this location or any of these locations. Let me just say that one more time. The debris had to float over 10 miles a day in a near straight line for 500 straight days. What? What? 10 miles a day. There's no way in hell that this debris was floating randomly over 10 miles per day in a straight line. No chance. This is why Blaine Gibson, who was finding the debris in South Africa, questioned the narrative. There's no way this plane crashed along this arc over here. No chance in hell. The debris would have washed up in Australia. It's not washing up in Africa. Have a good night, Mystical Wonderland. And here's the thing. It's not waves that transport the objects. It's the wind. So this is why my next post, guys, that I'm going to post tomorrow, read through Jeff Wise's blog. This one right here, I'll even link it to you guys. This is why I sent Jeff Wise a message. Because I'm like, Jeff Wise, your journalism's actually good. You just got the wrong conclusion. He even talks about how wind is the main factor for debris floating around, right? And the problem is you read this first couple paragraphs from it and you realize what's wrong with Jeff Wise, right? He thinks that that Blaine Gibson's a crackpot. Blaine Gibson's literally just finding debris in Africa. And Jeff Wise can't think it's real because Jeff Wise thinks the plane went to Russia, right? And the problem with Jeff Wise here was he didn't adjust his perception, you know? To me, this idea marked him instantly as a crank. This is a great way to discredit yourself, chat. If you make a post like this is discrediting yourself entirely. Some random guy is finding debris and you are literally calling him a crank. That's your perception, is you think he must be a crank because he found debris somewhere. He's just a guy that found something. This shows bias right here, right? Is you're not willing to open your mind. Now, the difference between that and our investigation is that we have looked at all the evidence and we've made our story based on as much evidence as we possibly can, right? I wish Jeff Wise wasn't so obsessed with Russia. I don't understand what his obsession with Russia is. It's crazy, man. Russia is not as advanced as we are. Not even close, man. And he talks about the wind is what causes debris to float. And then I read the Florence DeChangi article that came out today as well. Same argument. She basically talks about how far it would have to have gone. And the part two is that the wind then means that it's dependent upon like how the debris is sticking out of the water. Like think of like a sailboat, right? And this is why there's no chance this debris is floating 10 miles a day. There's just no way. Because if the debris is underwater, it's not going to float that. It's not going to move that far. It's just not going to move that far, guys. So this is just wild. And here's the other kicker is that I found a Reddit post that talked about the MH370 debris and says that the debris analysis is all bullshit. Debris analysis is never, or drift analysis has never been used to find a single plane ever in the history of the world. They used drift analysis to try to pinpoint the Air France 447 crash. Completely failed. It actually caused huge delays in searching for the Air France 447 debris because they ended up searching in the wrong spot because the drift analysis was complete bullshit. So drift analysis is garbage, and that's why that's the first post I'm going to make tomorrow is going to be about the drift analysis, probably in the morning as well. I'm probably just going to throw out all the pieces tomorrow. Tomorrow's going to be debris, the Inmarsat pings, and then the probably espionage scenario in the afternoon. And then on Thursday, I'll probably do a piece about Edward C. Lynn and maybe one more. Arwin found some good stuff about Freescale semiconductors as well, and Rolls-Royce. Oh, I didn't have Rolls-Royce listed on here. Hopefully we get through all this before Friday. We'll see. We'll see. And then on Friday, guys, just as a heads up, I typed this in the chat and then I deleted it. I'm probably going to start streaming some video games. Oh, no. There's a new game coming out on Friday that's a strategy game, and I fucking love strategy games. So I'm probably going to do some streaming of that. I'm going to stream my Switch and do some of that stuff. So if you're wondering why there's random video game streaming happening, well, first of all, A, I'm retiring on Friday from MH370. B, I need a little bit of a break from it. And C, I love strategy games. So we'll see. So don't be surprised. Okay, let's get through the rest of
the
this.
vessels that led the most recent search, and they did.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, one more thing I want to address is what Poetry and Prose. I don't know who you are, but I kind of love you. All speculative computer modeling is bullshit. Yes. Science is not models, guys. Science is the study of observable reality. When you do models, that's not science. That's speculation, right? And COVID illustrated it the best. I don't know if you guys remember this, but the IMHE models, IMHE, I think that's the right one. Their models had like millions and millions of people dying, and maybe like well beyond what ended up happening. They had all the hospitals being overwhelmed. It was absurd. None of it ended up coming to fruition because this is like when you use models and extrapolation, it never mimics the real world. The real world has way too many variables, and that's the reason why. So whether or not you think COVID was a scam or legit, doesn't really matter. The models were totally off by like magnitude of like 10 or more. And this is why you can't use models to determine that. Oh, and it's also confirmation bias, right? Where they are, if Ellie's still in the chat, confirmation bias, right? Where they're going, well, we have to figure out a way where we can get the debris over here, right? Even though that the plane supposedly we think crashed way over here. It's like, okay, well, let's just invent some models that will allow the debris to float all the way over here, right? That's confirmation bias, right? If you wanted to test it, what you do, you just throw some pieces in the water over here, and then you figure out where they go, and you wouldn't have any preconceived notions about where you think they should show up. But that's not what they did. Instead, they reversed the argument. They go, here's where the debris showed up. Here's where we think the plane crashed. Now let's figure out the models that will allow that to happen. That's confirmation bias.
Phenomenal work, but they're only as good as where they're told to look.
And for Artisan Tony, it took a long time to find Amelia Earhart's plane. First of all, I don't think we've even found it necessarily. Second of all, that plane disappeared well before we had satellites, right? We've got satellites everywhere. This is the part where people try to argue, they try to argue that, oh, well, the Titanic, we never found the Titanic for 100 years. Guys, Titanic disappeared early 1900s, man. That's a completely different scenario than the plane disappearing in 2014, right? Completely different scenario. I'm retiring right as Malaysian Airlines might renew Hunt. First of all, guys, keep in mind, this is only happening because of the 10-year anniversary. Like, this is the exact news buildup because they like to take advantage of current events, right? And I knew this was going to come. I don't even know they'll necessarily do a search. If they do a search, I would say I'm 99.9% sure they're not going to find the plane. Some people are going, well, they could have They could have dumped the plane there. Yeah, they could have dumped the plane there, but it's too much work, man. Way too much work, right? This is a sloppy cover-up. This is not an advanced cover-up, right? It's very unlikely they flew the plane over there and crashed and dumped it somewhere in the last few years. If anything, they would have found it years ago. They would have dumped it there right afterwards, and we would have found it. They're not going to find the plane. And that's great. I hope they search. We actually want them to search, because the more that they search and find nothing, the more the people have to address the MH370 videos. And no, Tony, you're on point. I'm not trying to put you down at all, man. You know I respect you. But yeah, but that's the big difference, though, because people do bring that up. They say, oh, well, they didn't find Amelia Earhart there. They didn't find the Titanic, right? But it was a completely different time, right? Planes cannot disappear in 2014 and beyond. We have satellites everywhere.
And part of the problem with the MH370 mystery is that we started out with the assumption that the plane was in some way incapacitated, perhaps by a fire, and that eventually it fell in.
You guys hear that? He literally mentioned the fire scenario right there. That was like a Freudian slip. Like, that was so weird that he mentions the fire right there. They are possibly incapacitated by a fire. I mean, that was kind of an idea that was floated, but not really. People kind of ruled out the fire thing right away. This makes me think that Ross Coulthart, while he was in this interview, was thinking about the MH370 videos. How funny is that? He's like, oh, it might be incapacitated by a fire. Okay. Now you're talking.
Into the sea after it ran out of fuel. Now, there's been alternative theories that have speculated that there was a rogue pilot, that perhaps it was a Captain Zahari.
Why is it even floating the rogue pilot nonsense? This is why Ross, no disrespect, man, shouldn't be floating the rogue pilot nonsense. There's no evidence whatsoever for the rogue pilot bullshit. No evidence, right? I mean, if you're a rogue pilot, last contact, this is where the plane crashes. Right here. Right here. If this is a rogue pilot scenario, you are crashing the plane right away. This idea that they flew to Penang and said goodbye to his hometown and then dodged radar in Indonesia to go around the island of Indonesia and then fly south and then crash the plane down here, it's effing insane. That's sillier and more nonsensical than teleporting the plane. It makes no sense whatsoever. There's no evidence to support it, and it makes no sense whatsoever. It's not even possible to disable the plane that way. You can't even make the plane go dark by yourself. It requires disabling 4 APUs, which are some kind of power unit, right? There's no chance that this was a rogue suicidal pilot scenario. Nothing is indicative of it.
The main.
Have a good night, Ellie. We're dropping offline here in a few minutes.
Captain on the air.
Ross is a mentalist. He actually does kind of remind me of the show The Mentalist. I'm not really sure why.
Craft, and that it was somehow some kind of suicide mission. This is, of course, disputed by the Malaysians and indeed vigorously disputed also by some of the investigators here.
So all the investigators and the Malaysian government says that it was not a suicidal pilot scenario. Let's just let that sink in for a second. So now if you think it's a suicidal pilot scenario, you need to come up with a way for why the government and all the investigators are saying that it's absurd, right? Now you have to actually build a conspiracy. Why would the government cover up a suicidal pilot scenario? It makes no sense. If it's a suicidal pilot scenario, they can just admit that it's a suicidal pilot scenario. They're like, oh, it's Asia, and they're trying to save face. Save face from what? Why would they risk a giant cover-up to protect the pilot if he's suicidal? Absolutely not. The reason why they're defending the pilot is because there's no evidence the pilot did it. His mental history checks out, psychological profile checks out, his background checks out, his wife supports him. There's no evidence. His voice is totally normal in the last communications. This is not a pilot suicide scenario. That's the reason why they're defending him. And that's the irony, is that the people that would make fun of conspiracy theorists are the ones literally making up silly conspiracy theories about why the government is protecting from a suicidal pilot scenario. Literally, everyone's ruled it out.
Here in Australia. But the fact that there might have been a rogue pilot, that this could have been a dreadful murder-suicide for some unexplained reasons, could explain why the aircraft has been outside the existing search area. Because...
yeah, Poetry and Prose, you are on fire tonight. Do you remember the Atlantic cover story that ratified the suicidal pilot scenario? It apparently began in the New Yorker, I believe. And then you know who the person who started the suicide pilot scenario? Jeff Wise. Wow. That was a pretty big uncovering to figure that out. That Jeff Wise was the one that started. I think he had to issue an apology because it was full of shit. But everyone's still run with it to this day because what's the alternative? Orbs teleported a plane? Yeah. So it's either Orbs teleported a plane or it was a crazy suicidal pilot scenario that makes no sense whatsoever. I mean, it's a tough choice for a lot of people.
A pilot could have done a controlled landing on the sea.
Okay, controlled landing, get out of here. Just get out, Ross. Get out, man. Controlled landing in the sea after 8 hours of running the plane out of fuel. This is just totally nut job shit, right? We've already ruled it out. The investigators have ruled it out. The government has ruled it out. And now you're telling me that they didn't ever crash the plane. They ran it out of gas, but then somehow we're like, okay, guys, I've flown this plane for 8 hours. I've killed everybody on board. And now I'm going to slowly land into the water. No chance in hell. Complete nonsense. Total and complete nonsense, guys.
And they could have glided the aircraft considerably further.
Glided the aircraft? Like, oh, we ran out of gas and now we're gonna, it's like we're in our car, right? And we're at the fuel is at 0. And I'm trying to really just barely touch the gas pedal so that I can try to get as much fuel out of it. Is that what a suicidal pilot is gonna be thinking? Like, hey, I gotta make sure I land this thing safely. Or land this thing quietly so that nobody ever finds it. Why would a suicidal pilot, somebody who's trying to kill themselves, who just killed 238 people, is that what their mindset is? Like, I just need people to just think logically, right? Just use logic and reason, please. Just use logic and reason, guys. This was not a suicidal pilot scenario. I'm 1,000% sure.
Than an aircraft that just ran out of fuel.
Yeah, and then deployed those
inflatables. Now driving the new search.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I guess when you don't have any answers, all possibilities are still at play. But certainly the aviation
except for
world
apparently
and those
Orbs
hoping for
that's
answers
not at play for some reason.
In this latest update, they deserve closure. That's for sure. Ross Coulthart, thank you so much. Good to see you.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, guys, you got to forgive me for thinking Ross might be kind of in on it, right? Like, he does this 3-minute segment, and half of it is him talking about the suicidal pilot scenario. That makes no sense whatsoever. So, okay, maybe I was a little rude to him here. When you realize the depth of the UFO conspiracy and the videos are the true fate of emissary, get in touch with me, Ross. Planes do not disappear in 2014. Look up Sibbers. You'll wake up one day. I have faith. No, I don't think that Ross is actually disinformation. I just think that he's an old school TV, New York Times kind of journalist. And what we're doing and disclosing is just well beyond what he's prepared to accept. That's my true opinion. I think this is well beyond what Ross Coulthart is ready to accept. Michio Kaku, I love Michio Kaku. Right. He's one of my favorite physicists. He talks about a lot of the stuff that is aligned with the stuff that we've been disclosing. The thing about people like Michio Kaku that I think is problematic is the conspiracy angle, right? A lot of people like Michio Kaku want to think that our government is probably not going to be implicated in something this dark. This is dark, chat. Look what we're looking at here. Disappearing our own plane, disappearing a plane in some kind of espionage scenario is like, this is criminal behavior. This is starting a war type behavior, right? There's a lot of people that can't accept this just from the perspective of patriotism. So I think that Michio Kaku could be on board with the science, but the conspiracy angle is probably too much for him. And that's why I tell people, like, I wish we didn't have orbs teleporting this plane, because holy shit. Like, not only is this just straight up catastrophic disclosure, but this is also the largest verifiable conspiracy of all time. I mean, maybe you say COVID's a bigger conspiracy, but whatever. I'm talking about verifiable stuff that, like, you just got the hard proof, right? Like, we got hard proof. So, you know, again, pretty wild, chat. Okay. I think we're going to close it out there. I said we would only do an hour stream tonight, and we're 2.5 hours deep already. It's getting pretty late. Would you interview Ross or Rick Aston? I would talk to anybody. That's the truth. It's not that me not talking to them that's the issue. It's the issue of them not talking to us. That's the hardest part, right? So we'll see. There was, what I'll tell you guys is that there was a Australian TV station that wanted to talk to me, but they just went dark. I didn't really message them a lot more. And if I had to guess, I would say that the thing got nixed because their producers, executives, whatever, came and said, no, we don't want to do this or whatever, right? It's pretty tough. Krishley says, when you say we're not going long, I expect another hour and a half. Yeah, exactly. I'm starting to lose my voice here as well, guys, and I got to wake up for work tomorrow. So, yeah, tomorrow, guys, I'm not 100% sure if we'll do another stream tomorrow. I really got to get some of these pieces finished. So if I get all the pieces that I have expected finished and do a little bit of work on the special thing that I have presented or getting ready for Friday, then we'll probably do another stream tomorrow, but no guarantee. Anyway, guys, I want to thank you guys very much. All the support, everything, the 80,000 followers, the hardcores, all the guys I see in the chat that I've seen a lot of times in here. Sometime in the future, we will disclose advanced technology to the world. That I'm very certain about. But I think that the landscape's more complicated than what I originally expected. So, yeah. Anyway, guys, thank you very much. Thank you, Pamela. Thanks, Eve, Amanda, B, everybody else is in here. Have a great night. I will talk to you soon. Good night, MH370X.